Going on to the Hot Larks tonight, Olivia?
I suppose so. Are you?
Yes, horribly tedious parties they give, don't they?
Horribly tedious. Never know why I go. Never know why I go anywhere.
I come here to be educated.
Oh, I hate being educated.
Oh, so do I. It puts one almost on the same level as those of the commercial classes. Oh! Dear Gertrude Chilton keeps telling me I need to find some serious purpose in life, so I come here to try to find one.
I don't see anybody here tonight who one could possibly call a serious purpose. The man who took me to dinner talked to me of his wife the whole time.
How trivial of him!
Terribly trivial. And what did your man talk about?
About myself.
And were you interested?
Oh, not in the smallest degree.
What martyrs we are, dear Margaret.
And how well it becomes us, Olivia.
Mr. and Lady Jane Barford, Lord Caversham.
Good evening, Lady Chilton. Has my good-for-nothing young son been here?
I don't think Lord Goring has arrived. Why do you call Lord Goring good-for-nothing?
Oh, because he leads such an idle life.
How can you say such a thing? Why, he rides in the Row at 10 o'clock in the morning, goes to the opera 3 times a week, changes his clothes at least 5 times a day, and dines out every night of the season. Now, you don't call that leading an idle life, do you?
You're a very charming young lady.
How sweet of you to say that, Lord Caversham. Do come to us more often. You know we are always at home on Wednesdays, and you look so well with your star.
Oh, never go anywhere anymore. Sick of London society.
Oh.
Shouldn't mind being introduced to my own tailor. At least he votes on the right side. Oh, but objects strongly to being sent down to dinner with my wife's milliner. Ooh. Never could stand Lady Caversham's bonnets.
I love London society. I think it is immensely improved. It is entirely composed now of beautiful idiots and brilliant lunatics, just what society should be.
And which is Goring, beautiful idiot, or the other thing?
I've been obliged at present to put Lord Goring in a class quite by himself, but he's developing charmingly.
Into what?
Well, I hope to let you know very soon, Lord Caversham.
Lady Markby, Mrs. Cheeverley.
Oh, good evening, dear Gertrude. So kind of you to let me bring my friend, Mrs. Cheeverley. 2 such fascinating women should know one another.
Oh, but I do believe Mrs. Cheeverley and I'd met before.
Oh.
Though I do not know she had married a second time.
Well, nowadays, people marry as often as they can. It is most fashionable. Oh, dear Duchess, and how's the Duke? A brain still weak, I suppose. Oh, well, that's only to be expected. His poor father was the same way. There is nothing like race, is there?
But have we really met before, Lady Chilton? I can't remember where. I've been out of England for so long.
We were at school together, Mrs. Cheeverley.
Indeed, I have forgotten all about my school days. I have a vague impression they would have detestable.
I am not surprised.
Do you know, I am quite looking forward to meeting your clever husband. Since he's been at the Foreign Office, he's been so much talked of in Vienna. They actually succeed in spelling his name right in the newspapers. That in itself is fame on the continent.
Oh, I hardly think there will be much in common between you and my husband, Mrs. Cheverley.
Ah, chère madame, quelle surprise! I have not seen you since Berlin.
Oh, not since Berlin, Vicomte. 5 years ago.
And you are younger and more beautiful than ever. How do you manage it?
By making it a rule only to talk to perfectly charming people like yourself.
You flatter me. You butter me, as they say here.
Oh, do they say that here? How dreadful of them.
Yes, they have a wonderful language. It should be more widely known.
Oh, good evening, Lady Markby. I hope you brought Sir John with you.
Oh, I have brought someone much more interesting than Sir John with me here tonight. Sir John's temperament, since he has taken seriously to politics, has become quite unbearable. Really, now that the House of Commons is trying to become more useful, it does a great deal of harm.
I hope not, Lady Markby. At any rate, we do our best to waste the public time, don't we? But who is this charming person you've been kind enough to bring to us?
Her name is Miss Cheverley. One of the Yorkshire Cheverleys, I suppose. I really don't know. Family names are so mixed nowadays. Indeed, as a general rule, everybody turns out to be somebody.
Mrs. Cheverley, I seem to know that name.
She has just arrived from Vienna.
Oh, yes, I know who you mean.
Oh, she goes everywhere now and has such pleasant scandals about her friend. Yes. I really must go to Vienna next winter. I hope they have a little chef at the embassy.
If not, the ambassador will certainly have to be recalled. And pray, point out Miss Cheverley to me. I certainly would like to meet her.
Let me introduce you. My dear Sir Robert Chilton is dying to know you.
Everyone is dying to meet the brilliant Mrs. Cheverley. All I have to say is that Vienna writes of nothing else.
Oh, thank you, Sir Robert. An acquaintance that begins with a compliment is sure to develop into a real friendship. It starts in the right manner. And I find that I know Lady Chilton already.
Really?
Yes, she has just reminded me that we were at school together. I remembered perfectly now. She always got the Good Conduct Prize. I have a distinct recollection of Lady Chilton. Always getting the Good Conduct Prize.
And what prizes did you get, Mrs. Cheverley?
My prizes came a little later on in life. I don't think any of them are for good conduct. I forget.
I'm sure they were for something charming.
I don't know that women are always rewarded for being charming. Certainly more women grow old nowadays through the faithfulness of their admirers than through anything else. At least that is the only way I can account for the terribly haggard look of most of your pretty women in London.
What an appalling philosophy that sounds, Mrs. Cheverley. To attempt to classify you would be impertinence. But may I ask, at heart, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Those seem to be the only fashionable religions left to us nowadays.
Oh, I'm neither. Optimism begins with a broad grin and pessimism ends with blue spectacles. Besides, they're both of them merely posing.
You prefer to be natural.
Sometimes, but it is such a very difficult pose to keep up.
And what would our modern psychological novelists, of whom we hear so much, about say to such a theory as that?
The strength of women comes from the fact that psychology cannot explain us. Men can be analysed, women merely adored.
You think science cannot grapple with the problem of woman?
Science can never grapple with the irrational. That is why it has no future before it in this world.
And women represent the irrational?
Well-dressed women do.
I can hardly agree with you there. But do sit down. Now tell me, what has made you leave your brilliant Vienna for our gloomy London? Or perhaps the question is indiscreet.
Questions are never indiscreet. Answers sometimes are.
At least tell me, is it politics or pleasure?
Politics are my only pleasure. You see, nowadays it is not fashionable to flirt till one is 40, or be romantic till one is 45. So we poor women who are under 30, or say we are, have nothing open to us but politics or philanthropy. And philanthropy seems to me to become simply the refuge of people who wish to annoy their fellow creatures. I prefer politics. I think they're more becoming.
Well, a political life is a noble career.
Sometimes, and sometimes it is a clever game, Sir Robert. Sometimes it is a great nuisance.
Which do you find it?
A combination of all three.
Allow me.
Thanks.
Now do tell me, what has made you honor our London society so suddenly? Our season is almost over.
Oh, I don't care about the London season. It is far too matrimonial. People are either hunting for husbands or hiding from them. I wanted to meet you. It is quite true. Do you know what a woman's curiosity is? Almost as great as a man's. I wanted immensely to meet you and to ask you to do something for me.
Well, I hope it is not a little thing. I find little things are so difficult to do.
No, I don't think it's quite a little thing.
Oh, very good. Do tell me what it is.
Later on. And now may I walk through your beautiful house? I hear your pictures are charming. Poor Baron Arnheim. You remember the Baron? Used to tell me he had some wonderful carottes.
Did you know the Baron well?
Intimately, did you?
At one time, yes.
Wonderful man, wasn't he?
He was a remarkable man in many ways.
I often think it's such a pity he never wrote his memoirs. They would have been most interesting.
Yes, he knew men and cities well, like the old Greek.
Without the dreadful disadvantage of having a Penelope waiting at home for him.
Lord Goring.
Oh, my dear Arthur! Mrs. Cheveley, allow me to introduce you to Lord Goring, the idlest man in London.
I have met Lord Goring before.
I did not think you would remember me, Mrs. Cheveley.
My memory is under admirable control. And are you still a bachelor?
I believe so.
Oh, very romantic.
I'm not at all romantic. I'm not old enough. I leave romance to my seniors.
Lord Goring is the result of the Boodles Club.
And he reflects every credit on the institution.
May I ask, are you staying in London long?
Oh, that depends partly on the weather, partly on the cooking, and partly on Sir Robert.
I hope you're not going to plunge us into another European war.
Oh, there is no danger at present.
You are very late.
Have you missed me?
Awfully.
Then I'm sorry I didn't stay away longer. I enjoy being missed.
How very selfish of you.
I'm very selfish.
You are always telling me of your bad qualities, Lord Goring.
I've only told you half of them as of yet, Miss Mabel.
Are the others very bad?
No, quite dreadful. When I think of them at night, I go to sleep all at once.
Well, I delight in your bad qualities. I wouldn't have you part with one of them.
That is very kind of you. But then again, you are always kind. Miss Mabel, I have a question. Who brought Mrs. Cheveley here, the woman in heliotrope who has just gone out of the room with your brother?
I think Lady Markby brought her. Why do you ask?
I just haven't seen her for years, that is all.
What an absurd reason.
All reasons are absurd.
What sort of woman is she?
She's a genius during the day and a beauty at night.
I just like her already.
Shows your admirable good taste.
The English young lady is the dragon of good taste, is she not? Quite the dragon of good taste.
So the newspapers are always telling us.
I'll read all your English newspapers. I find them so amusing.
Then, my dear Jacques, you must certainly read between the lines.
I should like to, but my professor objects.
Oui.
May I have the pleasure of escorting you to the music room, mademoiselle?
Delighted, Vicomte, quite delighted. Aren't you coming to the music room?
Not if there is any music playing, Miss Mabel.
Well, the music is in German. You would not understand it.
Well, sir, what are you doing here? Wasting your time as usual, I suppose? You should be in bed, sir. I heard of you the other night, Lady Ruffles, dancing till 4 o'clock in the morning.
No, only a quarter till 4, Father.
Ugh, can't make out how you stand under society. The whole thing has gone to the dogs. A lot of damn nobody's talking about nothing.
But I do love talking about nothing, Father. It's the only thing I know anything about.
You seem to be living entirely for pleasure, sir.
I don't know what else there is to live for, Father. Nothing ages so much as happiness.
You are heartless, sir. Very heartless.
No, I hope not, Father. Good evening, Lady Basilton.
Oh, are you here? I had no idea you ever came to political parties.
Oh, I adore political parties. It's the only place left to us where people don't talk politics.
I delight in talking politics. I talk them all day long, but I can't bear listening to them. Don't know how the unfortunate men in the house can stand these long debates.
By not listening.
Really?
Yes, it is a very dangerous thing to listen, you see. If one listens, one may be convinced. And a man who allows himself to be convinced by an argument is a thoroughly unreasonable person.
That accounts for so much in men that I have never understood, and so much in women that their husbands never appreciate in them.
What? Oh. Our husbands never appreciate anything in us. We have to go to others for that.
Yes, always others, have we not?
And those are the views of the two women who are known to have the most admirable husbands in all of London.
Oh, that's exactly what we can't stand. My Reginald is quite hopelessly faultless. Really unendurably so at times. There's not the smallest element of excitement excitement in knowing him.
Really, the thing should be more widely known.
Basildon is quite as bad. He is as domestic as if he were a bachelor.
Oh, Olivia, we have married perfect husbands and are well punished for it.
I should have thought it was the husbands who were punished.
Oh, dear no. They are as happy as possible. And as for trusting us, well, it's tragic how much they trust us.
Perfectly tragic.
Or comic, Lady Basildon.
Certainly not comic, Lord Goring. How unkind of you to suggest such a thing.
I'm afraid Lord Goring is in the camp of the enemy as usual. I saw him talking to that Mrs. Cheveley when he came in.
Handsome woman, Mrs. Cheveley.
Please don't praise other women in our presence, Lord Goring. You might wait for us to do that.
I did wait.
Well, we're not going to praise her. I hear she went to the opera on Monday night and told Tommy Rufford that as far as she could see, London society was entirely made up of dowdies and dandies.
No, and she's quite right, too. All the men are dowdies and all the women are dandies.
Oh, do you really think that's what Mrs. Cheveley meant?
Of course, and it's a thoroughly sensible thing for Mrs. Cheveley to say
Why
as well.
are you talking about Mrs. Cheveley? Everybody is talking about Mrs. Cheveley. Lord Goring says... What did you say, Lord Goring, about Mrs. Cheveley?
Well,
I remember that she's a genius in the daytime and a beauty at night.
What a horrid combination. So very unnatural.
I love looking at geniuses and listening to beautiful people.
How very morbid of you, Miss Marchmont.
How kind of you to say so, Lord Goring. Marchmont and I have been married for 7 years and never once has he told me that I'm morbid.
I've always said, dear Margaret, that you're the most morbid person in London.
But you've always been sympathetic,
Is
Olivia.
it morbid to have a desire for food? I have a great desire for food. Lord Goring, will you give me some supper?
With pleasure.
How horrid you've been. You've never talked to me the whole evening.
How could I have? You went out of the room with your child diplomatist.
Well, you might have followed us. Pursuit would have been only polite. I don't think I like you at all this evening.
I like you immensely.
Well, I wish you'd show it in a more marked way.
Olivia, I have a curious feeling of absolute faintness. I think I should like some supper very much.
I'm positively dying for supper, Margaret.
Men are so horribly selfish, they never think of these things.
Men are grossly material. Grossly material.
May I have the honor of escorting you down to the Bell contest?
I never take supper, thank you, Vicomte. But I will come down with you with pleasure.
I'm so very fond of eating. I'm so very English in all my tests.
You look quite English, Vicomte. Quite English.
Like some supper, Mrs. Marchmont.
Thank you, Mr. Marchford, but I never touch supper. But I will sit beside you and watch you.
I don't know that I like being watched while I'm eating.
Then I will watch someone else.
I don't know that I should like that either.
Pray, Mr. Marchford, you do not make these painful scenes of jealousy in public.
And are you going to any of our English country houses before you leave England, Mrs. Cheveley?
No, I can't stand your English house parties. In England, people actually try to be brilliant at breakfast. That is so dreadful of them. Only dull people are brilliant at breakfast. And then the family skeleton is always reading family prayers. My stay in England really depends on you, Sir Robert.
Seriously?
Quite seriously. I want to interest you in a great political and financial scheme. This Argentine Canal Company in Far.
What a tedious and practical subject for you to talk about, Mrs. Cheveley.
Oh, I like tedious practical subjects. What I don't like are tedious practical people. There is a wide difference. Besides, you are interested, I know, in international canal schemes. You were Lord Radley's secretary, weren't you, when the government bought the Suez Canal shares?
Yes, but the Suez Canal was a very great and splendid undertaking. It gave us a direct route to India. It had imperial value. This Argentine scheme is just a complete stock exchange swindle.
Oh, speculation, Sir Robert, a brilliant, daring speculation.
It is a swindle. Let us call things by their proper names. It makes matters simpler. We have all the information about it at the Foreign Office. In fact, I sent a special commission to inquire into the matter personally. They report the work has hardly begun. And as for the money already subscribed, no one seems to know what has become of it. The whole thing is a second Panama, without a chance of the chance that miserable affair ever had. I hope you've not invested in it. I'm sure you are far too clever to have done that.
I have invested very largely in it.
Who could have advised you to such a foolish thing?
Your old friend and mine.
Who?
Baron Arnheim.
Yes, I remember hearing at the time of his death he was mixed up in the whole affair.
It was his last romance, his last but one, to do him justice.
But you have not seen my Corrots. They're in the music room. I find Corrots go so well with music, don't you think? May I show them to you?
I'm not in the mood tonight for silver twilights or rose-pink dawns. I want to talk business.
I'm afraid I don't have advice to give you, Mrs. Cheveley. I'm going to lay the report of the commissioners before the House tomorrow night.
That you must not do, Sir Robert. In your own interest, to say nothing of mine, you must not do that.
In mine own interest? Whatever do you mean?
Sir Robert, I'll be quite frank with you. I want you to withdraw the report you'd intended to lay before the House, on the grounds that you have reason to believe the commissioners have been prejudiced or misinformed or something. And then I want you to say something to the effect that the government is going to reconsider the question, and you have reason to believe that the canal, if completed, would be of great international value. You know the sort of things ministers say in cases of this kind. A few ordinary platitudes will do. In modern times, nothing produces such an effect as a good platitude. It makes the whole world kin. Will you do that for me?
You cannot be serious in making me such a proposition, Mrs. Tivoli.
I'm quite serious.
Pray, allow me to believe you are not.
But I am. And if you do what I ask, I'll pay you very handsomely.
Pay me?
Yes.
I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean.
How very disappointing. And I've come all this way in order that you should thoroughly understand me.
I fear I don't.
Sir Robert, you are a man of the world, and you have your price, I suppose. Everybody has nowadays. The drawback is that most people are so dreadfully expensive. I know I am. I hope you'll be more reasonable in your terms.
You've lived so long abroad, Mrs. Tivoli. You seem to have forgotten I am an English gentleman.
I realize that I'm talking to a man who laid the foundation of his fortune by selling to a stock exchange speculator a cabinet secret.
What do you mean?
I mean that I know the real origin of your wealth and your career, and I've got your letter, too.
What letter?
The letter you wrote to Baron Arnheim when you were Lord Radley's secretary, telling the Baron to buy Suez Canal shares, a letter written 3 days before the government announced its own purchase.
It is not true. It is
You
not
thought the letter had been destroyed. How foolish of you. It is in my possession.
The affair to which you allude was no more than a speculation. The House of Commons had not yet passed the bill. It might have been rejected.
It was a swindle, Sir Robert. Let us call things by their proper names. It makes everything simpler. And now I'm going to sell you that letter. The price I ask for it is your public support of the Argentine scheme. You made your fortune out of one canal. It is time to help me and my friends make our fortunes out of another.
It is infamous what you propose, infamous.
Oh, no, it is the game of life as we've all got to play it, Sir Robert, sooner or later.
I will not do what you ask.
You mean you cannot help doing it? You know you are standing on the edge of a precipice, and it is not for you to make terms, it is for you to accept them. Supposing you refuse?
What then?
My dear Sir Robert, what then? You are ruined, that is all. Remember to what a point your Puritanism in England has brought you. In the old days, nobody pretended to be a bit better than one's neighbours. In fact, to be a bit better than one's neighbours was considered excessively vulgar and middle class. And nowadays, with our modern mania for morality, everybody has to pose as a paragon of purity, incorruptibility, and all the other 7 deadly virtues. And what is the result? You all go over like ninepins, one after the other. Not a year passes in England without somebody disappearing. The scandals used to lend charm, or at least interest, to a man. Now they crush him. And yours is a very nasty scandal. You couldn't survive it. If it were known that as a young man, secretary to a great and important minister, you sold a cabinet secret, and that was the origin of your wealth and your career, you'd be hounded out of public life. You'd disappear completely. And why should you sacrifice your entire future rather than deal diplomatically with your enemy? At the moment, I am your enemy. I admit it. And I'm much stronger than you are. The big battalions are on my side. You have a splendid position. But it is your splendid position that makes you so vulnerable. You can't defend it. And I'm an attack. I have not taught morality to you. In fairness, you must admit I have spared you that. Years ago, you did a clever, unscrupulous thing. Turned out a great success. You owe to it your fortune and position. And I've got to pay for it. Sooner or later, we've all got to pay for what we do. You must pay now. Before I leave you tonight, you must promise to suppress your report and speak in the House in favour of this idea.
It is impossible what you propose. It is
You
impossible.
must make it possible, Sir Robert. You are going to make it possible. Supposing when I leave your house, I drive to the nearest newspaper office and give them this scandal and the proofs of it. Think of their loathsome joy, of the delight they would have in dragging you down, of the mud and the mire they would plunge you in. Think of the hypocrite with his greasy smile penning his leading article and raging the founders of the public regard.
Stop. You want me to withdraw the report and make a short speech stating I believe there are possibilities in the scheme.
Those are my terms.
I will give you any sum of money you ask, any sum.
Even you are not rich enough to buy back your past. No man is.
I will not do what you ask. I will not.
Oh, you must. If you don't.
Wait, you said you would give me back my letter?
Yes, that is agreed. I'll be at the Ladies' Gallery tomorrow night at 11:30. If by that time, and you'll have had heaps of opportunity, you've made an announcement in the terms I wish, I will give you back your letter, with the prettiest thanks and the best, or at any rate the most suitable compliment I can think of. I intend to play quite fairly with you. One should always play fairly when one has the winning cards. The Baron taught me that, amongst other things.
You must give me time to consider your proposal.
No, you must settle now.
Give me a week, 3 days.
Impossible. I've got to telegraph to Vienna tonight.
God, what brought you into my life?
Circumstances.
Wait, don't go. I consent. I will have the report withdrawn and have a question brought to me on the subject.
Thank you. I knew we should come to an amicable agreement. I understood your nature from the first. I analyzed you, though you did not adore me. And now you may get my carriage for me. I see the people coming in from supper, and Englishmen always get romantic after a meal, and that bores me dreadfully.
Well, my dear Mrs. Cheeverley, I hope you have been enjoying yourself. Sir Robert is very entertaining, is he not?
Most entertaining. I've enjoyed my talk with him immensely.
He has had a very interesting and brilliant career, and has married a most admirable wife, I am very glad to say. I'm a little too old now myself to worry about setting a good example, yes. But I always admire people who do. And Lady Chiltern has had a very ennoblling effect upon life, though her dinner parties can be rather dull sometimes. But one can't have everything, can one? Shall I call on you tomorrow, darling?
Thanks.
We might drive to the park at 5. Everything is so fresh now in the park.
Except the people.
The people can be a little jaded. I have often observed that as the season progresses, it produces a sort of a softening of the brain. But anything is better than high intellectual pressure. It is the most unbecoming thing there is. It makes the noses of young girls particularly large. And nothing is so hard to marry as a large nose. Men don't like it. Good night, my dear. Good night, dear Gertrude.
What a charming house you have, Lady Chiltern. I've spent a most delightful evening. It has been so wonderful getting to know your husband.
Oh, why did you wish to meet my husband, Mrs. Cheeverley?
Oh, I will tell you. I wanted to interest him in this Argentine canal scheme, of which I dare say you have heard, and I found him most susceptible to reason, that is. A rare thing in a man. I converted him in 10 minutes. He's going to make an announcement in the House tomorrow evening in favour of the idea. We must go to the ladies' gallery and hear him. It will be a great occasion.
Oh, there must be some mistake. That scheme can never have my husband's support.
Oh, I assure you it's all settled. I don't regret my tedious journey from Vienna now. But, of course, for the next 24 hours, the whole thing's a dead secret.
A secret between whom?
Between your husband and myself.
Oh.
Your carriage has arrived, Mrs. Cheeverley.
Thanks. Good evening, Lady Chiltern. Good night, Lord Goring. I'm at Claridge's. Don't you think you might leave a card?
If you wish, Mrs. Cheeverley.
Oh, don't be so solemn about it, or I shall be obliged to leave a card on you. In England, I hardly suppose that's considered en grille. Abroad, we are more civilized. And now will you show me out, Sir Robert? Now that we have the same interests at heart, we shall be great friends,
What a horrid woman.
You should go to bed, Miss Mabel.
Lord Goring?
My father told me to go to bed an hour ago. I don't see why I shouldn't pass on the same advice. It's the only thing to do with good advice. It never suits oneself.
Lord Goring, you are always ordering me out of the room. I think it most courageous of you, especially as I'm not going to bed for hours. You may come and sit down if you like, and talk about anything in the world except the Royal Academy, Mrs. Cheeverley, or novels in a Scotch dialect. They would not be improving subjects. What is this? Someone has dropped a diamond brooch. Quite beautiful, isn't it? I wish it were mine, but Gertrude won't let me wear anything but pearls, and I'm so thoroughly sick of pearls. They always make one look so plain, so good, so intellectual. I wonder whom the brooch belongs to.
Yes, I wonder who dropped it.
Oh, it is a beautiful brooch.
It is a handsome bracelet, yes.
It isn't a bracelet, it's a brooch.
Well, indeed, it can't be used as a bracelet.
What are you doing?
Miss Mabel, I'm going to ask a very strange request
Oh,
of
pray
you.
do, I've been waiting for it all the evening.
Don't tell anybody anyone that I've taken charge of this brooch, should anyone write to claim it, let me know at once.
That is a strange request.
Yes, you see, I gave this to somebody years ago.
You did?
Yes.
Well, then I shall certainly bid you good night. Oh, good night, Gertrude.
Good night, dear. Lord Goring, you saw whom Lady Markleby brought here tonight.
Yes, it was an unpleasant surprise. What did she come here
Oh,
for?
apparently to try to lure Robert into upholding some fraudulent scheme in which he is interested in. The Argentine Canal, in fact.
Ah, well, she has underrated her men, hasn't she?
She is incapable of understanding an upright nature like mine.
Yes, I should imagine she came to grief if she tried to get Robert in her toils. It's extraordinary what astounding mistakes clever women make.
Oh, I don't call women like that clever. I call them stupid.
Same thing, often.
Oh.
Good evening, Lady Chiltern.
Good evening, Lord Goring.
Arthur, you're not going. Do stop a little.
I'm afraid I can't. I've promised to look into the Harlocks this evening. I hear they have a Mauve Hungarian band that plays Mauve Hungarian music. No?
How beautiful you look tonight, Gertrude.
It is not true, Robert. You're not going to lend your support to this Argentine speculation. You couldn't.
Who told you I intended
Oh,
to
the woman
do
who has
so?
just gone out, Mrs. Cheeverly, as she calls herself now. She seemed to taunt me with it, Robert. I know this woman. You don't. She was untruthful, dishonest, and an evil influence on everyone whose friendship or trust she could win. I hate them. I despised her. She stole things, Robert. She is a thief. She was sent away for being a thief. Why'd you let her influence you?
Gertrude, what you say may be true, but it happened many years ago. It is best forgotten. Mrs. Cheeverly may have changed since then. No one should be entirely judged
One
for their
past
past.
is what one is. It is the only way by which people should be judged.
That is a hard saying.
It is a true saying, Robert. And what did she mean by boasting that she had gotten you to learn your support, your name, to a thing I have heard you describe as the most fraudulent, dishonest scheme that has ever been in political life?
Well, I was mistaken in the view I took. We all make mistakes, Gertrude.
But yesterday you told me you received the report from the Commission that entirely condemned the whole thing.
I have reasons now to believe the report has been prejudiced, or at any rate misinformed. Besides, public and private life are different things. They have different laws and move on different lines.
They should both represent man at his highest. I see no difference between them.
In the present matter of practical politics, I have changed my mind, that is all.
Oh, Robert! Oh, it is horrible that I should have to ask you such a question, but are you telling me the whole truth?
Why do you ask me such a question?
Why do you not answer it?
Truth is a very complex thing, and politics are a very complex business. And there are wheels within wheels. Sometimes one might be under certain obligations to people that one must pay. In political life, we all must make compromises. Everyone does.
Compromise! Robert, why did you talk so differently tonight from the way I've always heard you talk? Why are you changed?
I am not changed. Circumstances alter things.
Circumstances never alter principles.
But if I told you
What?
that it was necessary, vitally necessary.
Oh, it can never be necessary to do a thing that is not honourable. Or if it be necessary, oh, then what is it that I have loved? Oh, but it is not, Robert. Tell me it is not. Why should it be? What gain would you have? Money? We have no need of that. And money that comes from a tainted source is degradation. Power? Power is nothing in itself. It is the power to do good that is fine. That and that only. What is it, Robert? Tell me why you are going to do this dishonourable thing!
Gertrude, you have no right to use that word here. It is simply a matter of rational
That is
compromise.
all very well for other men. For men who treat life simply as a sordid speculation. But not for you, Robert! Not for you. You are different. All your life you have stood apart from others. You have never let the world soil you. To the world as to myself. You have been an ideal always. Oh, be that ideal still. That great inheritance throw not away. That tower of ivory do not destroy. Robert, men can love what is beneath them, things unworthy, staying dishonourable, but we women worship when we love. And when we lose that worship, we lose everything. Oh, don't kill my love for you, Robert. Don't kill that.
Gertrude.
Yes, I know there are men with horrible secrets in their life. Men who have done some shameful thing and have to pay for it by doing some other act of shame. Do not tell me you are as they are. Robert, is there in your life any secret, dishonour or disgrace? Tell me at once
That what?
that our lives may drift apart.
Drift apart?
But they may be entirely separate. It would be better for us both.
Oh, Gertrude, there is nothing in my past life that you might not know.
I was sure of it. I was sure of it. But why did you say such dreadful things, so unlike your real... Let us never talk of this subject again. You're right, won't you, Miss Cheeverly, and tell her that you cannot support this scandalous scheme of hers. If you have given her any promise, you must take it back. That is all.
Must I write and tell her that?
Surely, what else is there to do?
Well, I might see her in person. It would be
No,
better.
you must never see her again. She is not a woman you should speak to. She is not worthy of a man like you. Write her. Now, this moment, and let your letter show that your decision is quite irrevocable.
Right this moment.
Yes!
It is late, nearly 12 o'clock.
Oh, that makes no matter. She must know that she was mistaken in you, that you are not a man to do anything base, underhand, or dishonourable. Write her, now, and let your letter show that your decision is quite irrevocable. Yes, write that you must decline to support this scheme of hers, as it holds to be a dishonest scheme. Yes, write the word dishonest. She knows what that means. That is all, and now the envelope. Take this to Claret Hotel. There is no answer. Robert, love gives one a certain, instinct to things, and I feel as if tonight I might have saved you from something that might have been a great danger to you, that might have made men honour you less than they do. Robert, I don't think you realise sufficiently that you have been brought into political life at a time of a nobler atmosphere, of a finer quality towards living, of freer air, purer aims, and higher ideals. I know it, and for that I love you, Robert.
Love me always, Gertrude. Love me always.
I will always love you, for you will always be worthy of love. We needs must love the highest when we see it.
Turn out the lights, Mason. Turn out the lights.
My dear Robert, it is a very awkward business, very awkward indeed. Secrets from other people's wives are a necessary luxury in modern society. Or at least so I'm told by people who are bald enough at the club to know otherwise. But you shouldn't keep a secret from your own wife. She invariably finds out. Women have an extraordinary sense about things. They can discover everything except the obvious.
Arthur, I could not tell my wife. When could I have told her? Not last night. It would have caused a lifelong separation between us. And I would have lost the love of the one woman of the world I worship, of the only woman who has ever stirred love within me. Last night would have been quite impossible. She would have turned from me in horror. Horror and contempt.
Is Lady Chiltern as perfect as all that?
Yes, my wife is perfect as all that.
What a pity.
Arthur.
Oh, I'm sorry, my dear fellow, I didn't quite mean that. But if what you tell me is true, I should like to have a good talk about life with Lady Chiltern.
It would be quite useless.
Well, may I try?
Yes, but nothing may make her alter her views.
And then at worst it would be a psychological experiment.
All such experiments are terribly dangerous, Arthur.
Everything is dangerous. Otherwise life wouldn't be worth living. Well, I'm bound to say that you should have told her years ago.
When? When we were engaged? Do you think she would have married me if she would have known that the origin of my fortune is such as it is, the basis of my career such as it is, that I had done a thing most men would call shameful and dishonorable?
Yes, most men would call it terrible names, of that there is no doubt.
Men who every day do something of the same kind themselves. Men who each one of them have worse secrets in their own lives.
Well, that is why they are so excited to find other people's secrets. It distracts the public from their own.
Whom did I wrong by what I did? No one.
Except yourself, Robert.
Of course, I had private information contemplated by the government today, and I acted on it. Private information is practically the source of every large modern fortune.
And public scandal invariably the result.
Arthur, do you think what I did nearly 18 years ago should be brought against me now? Should a man's whole career be ruined for a fault done in his boyhood, Ernest? I was 22 at the time, and I had the double misfortune of being well-born and poor. Two unforgivable things nowadays. Is it fair that the folly, the sin of one's youth, if men choose to call it sin, should wreck a life like mine, should place me in the pillory, should shatter all that I've worked for, all that I've built up? Is it fair, Arthur?
Life is never fair, Robert. And perhaps it is a good thing for the most of us that it is not.
Every man of ambition must fight his century with its own weapons. The god of this century is wealth. To succeed, one must have wealth. At any cost, one must have wealth.
You underestimate yourself, Robert. You could have succeeded just as well without wealth.
When I was old, perhaps. When I had lost my passion for power or couldn't use it. When I was disappointed, tired, worn out. I wanted success when I was young. Youth is a time for success. I couldn't wait.
Well, you have certainly had a success while you were still young. Nobody in our age has had such a brilliant success. Undersecretary of Foreign Affairs at the age of 40. That's good enough for anyone, I should think.
Yes, but if it is all brought against me now, if I lose everything over a terrible scandal, if I am hounded from public life.
Robert, how could you have sold yourself for money?
I did not sell myself for money. I bought success at a great price.
Yes, and certainly a great price you paid for it. What made you first think of doing such a thing?
Baron Arnheim.
Damned scoundrel.
No, he was a man of culture, charm, distinction. One of the most intellectual men I've ever met.
Ah, well, I prefer a gentlemanly fool any day. Oh, there is much more to be said of stupidity than people can imagine. I personally have a great admiration for stupidity. Call it a feather fitting, what you will. Well, come, tell me, Robert, how did he get you to do it? Tell me the whole thing.
Well, one night at Lord Radley's, the Baron began talking about success in modern life and how it could be reduced to an absolute science. He used that fascinating, quiet voice of his as he expounded to us the most marvelous of all philosophies, the philosophy of power. Preached to us the most terrible of all gospels, the gospel of gold. He made me marvel at the wonderful luxury in which he lived. He showed me his tapestries, his enamels, his carved ivories. He lived in the Park Lane the house Lord Wilkham has now. I think he saw what effect he produced in me. For some weeks afterward, he wrote to me, asking me to come and see him. He told me that power is the one thing in the world worth having. The one thing we're never tired of. And in this century, only the rich possessed it.
What a thoroughly shallow creed.
I didn't think so then. I don't think so now. Wealth has given me enormous power. It has given me on the onset of my life freedom. And freedom is everything. You've never been poor, and you've never known what ambition is. You can't know what a wonderful chance Baron Arnheim gave me. A chance few men get.
Fortunately for them, if one is to judge by results. Come, how did he finally persuade you to, well, do what you did?
As I was going away, he told me that if I could ever give him any private information of real value, he would make me a very rich man. My passion and desire for power were at that time boundless. 6 weeks later, certain private documents passed through my hands.
State documents?
Yes.
Robert, I didn't know that you of all people could be so weak as to yield to the temptation that Baron Arnheim held out to you.
Weak?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sick of hearing that phrase, sick of using it others weak. Arthur, do you really think that it is weakness that yields to temptation? I tell you, there are terrible temptations that require strength. Strength and courage to yield to. To stake one's entire life on a single moment, to risk everything on one throw. Whether the stake be power or pleasure, I cannot. There is no weakness in that. There is a terrible, horrible courage. And I had that courage. That very afternoon, I sat down and wrote Baron Arnheim the letter this woman now holds. He made $750,000 on the transaction.
And you?
I made $110,000.
Robert, you were worth more.
No. That money gave me exactly what I wanted, power over others. I went into the house immediately, and the Baron advised me in finance from time to time. Before 5 years, I had tripled my fortune. Since then, everything I have touched has turned out a success. In all things connected to money, I've had a luck so extraordinary that sometimes it has almost made me afraid. I remember reading in some strange book somewhere that when the gods wish to punish us, they answer our prayers.
So tell me, Robert, have you suffered any regret for what you had done?
No. I thought I'd fought the century with his own weapons and won.
You thought you'd won?
Yes, I thought so. Arthur, do you despise me for what I've told you?
I'm sorry for you, Robert. I'm very sorry indeed.
I didn't suffer regret. Well, not regret in the ordinary, rather silly sense of the word, but I paid conscience money many times.
Oh.
The sum Baron Arnheim gave me, I redistributed in public charities twice over since then.
Oh, public charities. Dear me, Robert, what a lot of harm you've done.
Oh, but don't talk like that. Don't speak like that.
Never mind what I say. I'm usually saying what I shouldn't. I often speak my mind. It's a great mistake nowadays. It makes one so liable to be misunderstood. But as in regards to this terrible affair, Robert, of course you know I'll help you in any way that I can. Of course you know that.
Thank you, Arthur. But what is to be done? What can be done?
Well, the English don't like a man that says he is always right, but they are confoundedly fond of a man that says he has been in the wrong. However, in your case, a confession would not do you. The money, if you allow me to say so, is awkward. Besides, if you did make a clean breast of the whole affair, you'd never be able to talk morality again. And in England, a man who can't talk morality twice a week to a large, popular, immoral audience is quite over as a serious politician. There'd be nothing left for him except botany. Or the church. No, a confession would not do you. It would ruin you.
Yes, it would ruin me. The only thing left is to fight it out.
Yes, I was waiting for you to say that. And you must begin by telling your wife the whole thing.
That I will not do.
You are wrong, Robert.
It would kill her love for me. What about this woman, this Mrs. Chivley? How can I defend myself against her? You knew her before, apparently.
Yes.
Did you know her well?
So little, in fact, that I got engaged to be married to her once while I was staying at the Tenbys. The whole affair lasted 3 days. Nearly.
Well, why was it broken off, Arthur?
I forget. It doesn't matter. By the way, have you tried her with money? She used to be confoundedly fond of money.
I offered her any sum of money she wanted, she refused.
Ah, then the gospel of gold breaks down sometimes. The rich can't do everything after all.
Yes. I suppose you're right, Arthur. I never knew what terror was before. I know it now. It is as if a hand of ice was laid upon one's heart. It is as if one's heart were beating itself to death in some empty hollow.
Robert, you must fight her. You must fight.
Yes, but how, Arthur?
I
How?
don't know. I haven't the slightest clue at present, but all of us have flaws. Each of us have some weakness. Even my father tells me I have faults. I don't know. Maybe I do.
In defending myself against Miss Chivley, I have the right to use any weapons necessary, have I not?
In your case, I wouldn't have the smallest scruple in doing so. She is thoroughly well able to take care of herself.
Then I shall write a cipher telegram to the embassy at Vienna. There may be some secret scandal she does not wish to be known.
Yes, and I imagine Mrs. Chivley is one of the modern women of our times who finds a scandal is becoming as a new bonnet and airs them both every day in the park at 5:30. Yes, I would imagine she adores scandals. The only sorrow of her life at present is that she can't find more of them.
Why do you say that?
Well, she wore far too much rouge last night and not enough clothes. It's the sign of distress in any woman.
But it is worthwhile writing, is it not?
It is always worth asking a question. It is not always worth answering one, though.
Is Mr. Trafford in his room?
Yes, Sir Robert.
Have him send this off to the cipher telegram at once. There must not be a moment's delay.
Yes, Sir Robert.
Oh, wait, just give that back again. Mrs. Chivley must have had some strange hold over Baron Arnheim. I wonder what it was.
I wonder.
I will fight her to the death, as long as my wife knows nothing.
Well, you must fight in any case. In any case.
If my wife found out, there would be little left to fight for. Well, as soon as I hear from Vienna, I shall let you know the result. It is a chance. Just a chance, but I believe in it. And as I fought the century with its weapons, I shall fight her with her weapons. It is only fair. And she looks like a woman with a past, doesn't she?
Ah, most pretty women do. And there is a fashion in past, just as there is a fashion in frocks. Perhaps Mrs. Chivley's is just a slight décolleté one, and they are exceedingly popular nowadays. But I wouldn't get your hopes too high on frightening Mrs. Chivley. I don't imagine she is a woman that frightens very easily. She has survived all of her creditors, and she shows a wonderful presence of mind.
I live on hopes now. I feel as though I am a man on a ship that is sinking. The water is about my feet, and the air is bitter with storm. Oh, I hear my wife coming.
Good morning, morning, Lord Goring.
Oh, Lady Chiltern, have you been in the park?
No, I have been at the Women's Liberal Association. Where, by the way, Robert, your name was received with loud applause. And now I'm coming to have my tea. You will stay for tea, won't you?
I will stay a minute, thanks.
I'm only going to be a moment. I'm only going to take off my hat.
Oh, please don't. Why, it's the prettiest hat I ever saw. I hope the Women's Liberal Association received it with loud applause.
Oh, we have much more important work to do than to look at each other's bonnets, Lord Goring.
What sort of work?
Oh, dull, useful, delightful things. Factory acts, female inspectors, the 8-hour bill, parliamentary franchise. Everything, in fact, you would find thoroughly uninteresting.
And never bonnets?
Oh, never bonnets, never.
You've been a thoroughly good friend to me, Arthur. A thoroughly good friend.
I haven't been able to do much for you as of yet. I haven't been able to do anything for you as far as I can see. I'm thoroughly disappointed in myself.
You've allowed me to tell the truth, and that is something.
The truth is something that I get rid of as soon as possible. Makes one very unpopular at the club, especially with the older gentlemen. They call it being conceited. Perhaps it is.
I wish I could have told the truth. To live the truth. There is the great secret in life, to live the truth. Well, I'll see you soon again, Arthur, shan't I?
Well, certainly. I'll look into the bachelor's ball tonight if I can't find anything better to do. But I'll come around tomorrow morning. Should you need me for any reason, send a note round Curzon Street, yes?
Yes.
You're not going, Robert.
I have letters to write, Gertrude.
Oh, you work too hard and you seem never to think of yourself. And you are looking so tired.
It is nothing, dear. Nothing.
Do sit down, Lord Goring. There is something I wish to talk to you about. Well, not bonnets, nor the Women's Liberal Association, though I think you take far too much interest in the first subject and not nearly enough in the second.
You wish to talk to me about Mrs. Cheveley?
Yes, you have guessed it. After you left last night, I found that what she said really was true. Of course, I made Robert write her at once, withdrawing his promise.
So he gave me to understand.
Oh, to have kept it would have been the first stain on a career that has been stainless always. Robert must be above reproach. He is not like other men. He cannot afford to do what other men do. Don't you agree with me, Lord Goring? You are Robert's greatest friend. You are our greatest friend. No one but myself knows him as well as you do. He has no secrets from me, and I don't think he has any from you.
Oh, he has none from me. No, at least I don't think so.
Then am I not right in my estimate of him? I know I'm right, but speak to me quite frankly.
Quite frankly?
Surely, you have nothing to conceal, have you?
Nothing. But Lady Chiltern, if you will allow me, sometimes in practical life...
Oh, of which you know so little.
Of which I know nothing by experience, but I do know something by observation. That in practical life there is something to be said about success, actual success that is a little unscrupulous. Something about ambition that is unscrupulous always. You see, when a man has set his heart and soul on a certain point, if he must climb the crag, he climbs the crag, and if he must walk through the mire...
Well...
But he walks through the mire. I'm only talking generally about life, Lady Chiltern.
Oh, I hope so. Why do you look at me so strangely, Lord Goring?
Lady Chiltern, I have often thought that perhaps you are a little hard on your views of life. You often don't make sufficient allowances. You see, in every nature there are elements of weakness, or worse than weakness. Take some public figure, for example, my father, or Lord Merton, or Robert, and say they had years ago written some foolish letter to someone.
What kind of foolish letter?
Oh, simply a letter compromising one's position. I'm only making an imaginary case, Lady Chiltern.
Robert is as incapable of doing a wrong thing as he is doing a foolish thing.
Nobody is incapable of doing a foolish thing. No one is incapable of doing a wrong thing.
Are you a pessimist, Lord Goring? Oh, what will all the dandies say? They'll have to go into mourning.
No, at present I am not a pessimist. I'm not quite sure what pessimism really means. All I do know is that life cannot be understood without much charity, cannot be lived without much charity. It is love, not German philosophy, that is the explanation of this world, whatever the explanation may be of the next. And if you are ever in any trouble, Lady Chiltern, come to me for my assistance, and you shall have it. Write at once for my help, and I shall come to you. Come at once to me.
Lord Goring, I do believe you're talking quite seriously. I don't think I've ever heard you talk seriously before.
It won't happen again if I can help it, Lady Chiltern.
But I do like you serious.
Dear Gertrude, don't say such a dreadful thing to Lord Goring. Seriousness would be very unbecoming to him. Good afternoon, Lord Goring. Pray be as trivial as you can.
I should like to be, but I'm afraid I'm a little out of practice this afternoon.
Oh.
So I must be going.
Oh, just when I have come in. What dreadful manners you have. I'm sure you were very badly brought up.
I was.
I wish I had brought you up.
I'm sorry you didn't.
It's too late now, I suppose.
I'm not quite so sure.
Will you ride tomorrow morning?
Oh, 10 o'clock.
Don't forget.
Of course not. Lady Chiltern, I could not find a list of your guests today in the Morning Post. It was crowded out by the Lambeth Conference, the County Council, something equally as boring. Would you give me a list of those guests? I'm asking you for a very particular reason.
Yes, Mr. Trafford can give it to you.
Thanks so much.
Tommy Trafford is the most useful person in London.
And who is the most ornamental?
I am.
So clever to have guessed it. Now, you won't forget what I have told you, won't you, Lady Chiltern?
Yes, though I don't know why you said it.
I hardly know myself. Good evening, Miss Mabel.
Well, I wish you were not going. I've had 4 wonderful adventures this morning. 4.5, in fact. You might stop and listen to some of them.
4.5? How very selfish of you. There won't be any left for me.
Well, I don't want you to have any. They would not be good for you.
That is the first unkind thing you have ever said to me. How charmingly you said it. Tomorrow at 10.
Sharp.
Quite sharp, and don't bring Tommy Trafford.
Of course I shan't bring Tommy Trafford. Tommy Trafford is in great disgrace.
I'm delighted to hear it.
Dear Gertrude, I wish you would speak to Tommy Trafford.
Oh, what has poor Mr. Trafford done this time? Robert says he is the best secretary he's ever had.
Tommy has proposed.
Oh.
Again. Tommy really does nothing but propose to me. Well, he proposed to me last night in the music room when I was quite unprotected as there was an elaborate trio going on. I didn't dare make the smallest repartee, I need hardly tell you. If I had, it would have stopped all the music at once. Musical people can be so absurdly unreasonable. They always want one to be perfectly dumb at the very moment when one is longing to be absolutely deaf. But then he proposed to me in broad daylight this morning in front of that dreadful statue of Achilles. Really, the things that go on in front of that work of art are quite appalling. The police should interfere. Well, at luncheon, I could see by the glare in his eye that he was about to propose again, and I just managed to check him in time by assuring him that I was bimetallist. Fortunately, I don't know what bimetallism means. I don't believe anybody else does either. But the observation crushed Tommy for 10 minutes. He looked quite shocked. And then Tommy is so annoying in the way he proposes. If he proposed at the top of his voice, I should not mind so much. That might produce some effect on the public. But he does it in this horrid, confidential way. When Tommy wants to be romantic, he talks to one just like a doctor. I am very fond of Tommy, but his methods of proposing are quite out of date. I wish you would speak to him, Gertrude, and tell him that once a week is, well, quite often enough to propose to anyone, and it should always be done in a manner that attracts some attention.
Oh, dear Mabel, don't talk like that. Besides, Robert thinks very highly of Mr. Trafford. He believes he has a brilliant future before him.
Marry a man with a future before him for anything under the sun.
Mabel!
I know, dear. You married a man with a future, didn't you? But then you have a noble, self-sacrificing character. You can stand geniuses. I have no character at all. And Robert was the only genius I could ever bear. As a rule, I think they're quite impossible. Geniuses talk so much, don't they? Such a bad habit. And they are always thinking of themselves when I want them to be thinking about me. Oh, well, I must go round now and rehearse at Lady Basildon's. You remember, we're having tableau, don't you? The triumph of, well, something or other. I don't know what. I hope it'll be the triumph of me, only triumph I'm really interested in at present. Dear Gertrude, do you know who's coming to see you? That dreadful Mrs. Cheveley, well, in a most lovely gown. Did you ask her?
Mrs. Cheveley coming to see me? Impossible.
I assure you, she's coming up the stairs as large as life and not nearly as natural.
Oh, you mustn't wait. Remember, Lady Basildon is expecting you.
Well, I must shake hands with Lady Markby. She's delightful. I love being scolded by her.
Lady Markby, Mrs. Cheveley.
Oh, Lady Markby! How kind it is for you to come and see me. Won't you sit down, Mrs. Cheveley?
Thanks. Isn't that Miss Chiltern? I should like so much to know her.
Mabel, Mrs. Cheveley wishes to know you.
I thought your frock so charming last night, so simple and suitable.
Really? Oh, well, I must tell my dressmaker to be such a surprise to her. Goodbye, Lady Markby.
They're going already?
I'm so sorry, but I'm obliged to. I'm just off to rehearsal. I've got to stand on my head in some tableau.
What your head, child? I should hope not. I believe it is most unhealthy.
Oh, but it's for an excellent charity in aid of the undeserving. The only people I'm really interested in. I am the secretary, and Tommy Trafford is treasurer.
And what is Lord Goring?
Oh, Lord Goring is president.
Oh, the post should suit him admirably, unless he's deteriorated since I knew him first.
You are remarkably modern, Mabel. Perhaps a bit too modern. Nothing is so dangerous as being too modern. One is apt to grow old-fashioned quite suddenly. I have known many instances of it myself.
What a dreadful prospect.
Oh, but you need not worry yourself, my dear. You shall always be, as pretty as possible. That is the best fashion there is, and the only fashion that England succeeds in setting.
Thanks so much, Lady Markby. Oh, for England and myself.
Dear Gertrude, we just called to know if Miss Cheeverley's diamond brooch has been found.
Here?
Yes, I missed it when I got back to Claridge's and thought I might possibly have dropped it here.
Well, I have heard nothing about it, but I will ring for the butler now.
Oh, pray don't trouble. I dare say I lost it at the opera before we came on here.
It must have been the opera. The fact is that we scramble and jostle so much nowadays in society. I wonder how we have anything left on us at the end of an evening. I know myself that when I am coming from the drawing room, I feel as if I didn't have a shred on me. Except a small shred of decent reputation. Just enough to prevent the lower classes from making painful observations through the window of the carriage. The fact is that our society is so dreadfully overpopulated. Really, someone should arrange a proper scheme of assisted immigration. It would do a great deal of good.
I quite agree with you, Lady Markby. It is nearly 6 years since I've been in London for the season, and I must say society's become dreadfully mixed. One sees the oddest people everywhere.
Well, that is true, dear, but one needn't know them. I'm sure I don't know half the people who go through my house. Indeed, from what I hear, I shouldn't like to.
What sort of brooch was it that you lost, Mrs. Cheeverley?
A diamond snake brooch with a ruby, a rather large ruby.
I thought you said it was a sapphire on the head, dear.
No, Lady Markby, it was a ruby.
Oh, and quite becoming, I'm sure.
Has a diamond and ruby brooch been found in any of the rooms this morning, Mason?
No, my lady.
It really is of no consequence. I'm so sorry to have put you to any inconvenience.
Oh, it has been no inconvenience. That is all, Mason. You may bring tea.
Well, I must say, it is most annoying to lose anything. I remember once in Bath, years ago, losing an exceedingly handsome cameo bracelet that Sir John had given me. I don't think he's given me anything else since, I'm sorry to say. He has sadly deteriorated. Really, this horrid House of Commons quite ruins our husbands for us. I think the lower house to be the greatest blow to a happy married life since that thing called the higher education of women was invented.
Why, it is heresy to say that in this home. Robert is a great champion of the higher education of women, and so I'm afraid am I.
The higher education of men is what I should like to see. Men need it so sadly.
That is true, dear, but I fear that such a scheme would be unpractical. I don't think man has much capacity for development. He has gone as far as he can, and that is not far, is it? In regards to women, well, dear Gertrude, you belong to the, younger generation. I'm sure it's all right if you approve of such a thing. In my day, of course, women were taught not to understand anything. That was the old system, and wonderfully interesting it was. I assure you, the amount of things that I and my poor dear sister were taught not to understand was extraordinary. But modern women understand everything, so I'm told.
Except their husbands. That is the one thing the modern woman never understands.
And a good thing too, dear, I dare say. It might break up a many happy marriage if it did, and not yours, I need hardly say, dear Gertrude. You have married a pattern husband. I wish I could say the same for myself. But since Sir John has taken to attending the debates regularly, which he never used to do in the good old days, his language has become quite impossible. He always seems to think he is addressing the House, and consequently, whenever he speaks on the subject of agricultural labour, or the Welsh Church, or something quite improper of that kind, I'm obliged to send all of the servants out of the room. It is not pleasant to see one's own butler, whom has been with one for 23 years, actually blushing at the sideboards, and the footmen making contortions in corners like persons in circuses. I assure you that my life will be quite ruined unless they send Sir John at once to the upper house. He won't take any interest in politics then, will he? The House of Lords is such a dignified body, an assembly of gentlemen. But in his present state, Sir John is really a great trial. Why, just before breakfast was half over this morning, he stood on the hearthrug, put his hands in his pockets, and appealed to the nation at the top of his voice. I had to leave before I finished my second cup of tea, I need hardly say, but his violent language could be heard all throughout the house. I trust Sir Robert is not the same way.
Oh, but I'm very much interested in politics, Lady Markaby. I love to hear Robert talk about this.
I hope he's not as devoted to those blue books as Sir John is. I don't think they much improve reading for anyone.
I've never read a blue book. I prefer books in yellow covers.
Yellow is a gayer colour, is it not? I used to wear yellow a good deal in my younger days, and would do so now, if Sir John were not so painfully personal in his observations. A man on the subject of dress is quite ridiculous, is he not?
Oh, no, I think men are the only authorities on dress.
Really, dear? One wouldn't say so from the sorts of hats they wear, now would they?
May I give you some tea, Mrs. Cheverley?
Thanks.
Some tea, Lady Markaby.
No thanks, dear. The fact is that I promised to go round to poor Lady Brancaster's, who is in really a great deal of trouble. Her daughter, a quite a well-brought-up girl, has actually become engaged to be married to a curate in Shropshire. It is very sad. I don't understand this modern mania for curates. In my day, of course, we saw them hopping about the place like rabbits, but we didn't pay them any mind. I need hardly say. But country society nowadays is quite honeycombed with them, so I'm told. I think it is most irreligious. Oh, and the eldest son has quarrelled with the father. And it is said that when they meet in the club, Lord Brancaster actually hides himself behind the money article of the Times. Ha! However, I believe this is quite a common occurrence nowadays, and that they have taken in extra copies of the Times in all the clubs in St. James's Street. And there are far too many fathers who won't have anything to do with their sons, and far too many sons who won't speak to their fathers. I think it is much to be regretted.
Oh, so do I, Lady Markaby. Fathers have so much to learn from their sons nowadays.
Really, dear? What?
Oh, the art of living, the only really fine art we've produced in modern times.
I'm afraid Lord Brancaster knew a good deal about that. More than his poor wife ever did. You know Lady Brancaster, don't you, dear?
Just slightly. She was at Langton when we were there last autumn.
Well, like all, stout women, she's the very picture of happiness, as you no doubt observed. Oh, but there are many other tragic instances in her family, besides that of the affair of the curate. Her own dear sister, Miss Jekyll, has had a most unfortunate life, through no fault of her own, I'm sorry to say. Ultimately, she was so, broken-hearted that she joined the convent. Or was it the operatic stage? I forget which. Oh, no! It was decorative art needlework that she took up. I know she lost all sense of pleasure in life. And now, dear Gertrude, I will leave Mrs. Cheeverley in your charge, and shall return for her in a quarter of an hour. Unless, of course, Mrs. Cheeverley, you wish to wait for me a while at the carriage in Lady Brancaster's, as I intended to be a visit of condolence. I shan't stay long.
I don't mind waiting in the carriage at all, provided there is somebody to look at one.
I always hear the carriage is prowling about the place.
I'm not very fond of girlfriends.
Oh, I wish Mrs. Cheeverley would stay a little. I should like to have a few minutes of conversation with her.
Oh, very kind of you, Lady Chiltern. Believe me, nothing would give me greater pleasure.
No doubt! You're very pleasant reminiscences to go over from your school days, eh? Goodbye, dear. Shall I see you tonight at Lady Bernard's? She has discovered a wonderful new genius. He does! Nothing at all, so I'm told. That is a great relief, is it not?
Oh, Robert and I will be dining at home by ourselves tonight. Oh, and I don't think I shall go anywhere after. Of course, Robert will have to be in the house, though there's nothing interesting on.
Dining at home? By yourselves? Do you think that quite prudent? Oh, but I forget. Your husband is the exception, and mine is the general rule. And nothing ages a woman so rapidly as having married the general rule.
A wonderful woman, Lady Markby, isn't she? Talks more and says less than anybody I ever met. She is made to be a public speaker, much more so than her husband, though he is a typical Englishman, always dull and usually violent.
I think it were right to tell you, quite frankly, that had I known who you were, I should not have invited you to my home last night.
Really?
Oh, I couldn't have.
I see that after all these years you have not changed a bit, Gertrude.
Oh, I never changed.
Then life has taught you nothing.
Oh, it has taught me that a person who's once guilty of dishonest and dishonourable action may be guilty of it a second time, and should be shunned.
And would you apply that rule to everyone?
Oh, yes, everyone without exception.
Well, then I'm sorry for you, Gertrude. Very sorry for you.
As you see now, for many reasons, any further acquaintance between us during your stay in London is quite impossible.
Do you know, I don't mind your talking morality a bit. Morality is simply the attitude we adopt towards people whom we personally dislike. You dislike me, I'm quite aware of that. And I've always detested you. And yet I've come here to do you a service.
Oh, like the service you wished to render my husband last night, I suppose. Oh, thank heavens, I saved him from it.
It was you who made him write that insolent letter to me. It was you who made him break his promise?
Yes.
Then you must make him keep it. I give you till tomorrow morning, no more, if by that time your husband does not solemnly bind himself to help me in this great scheme in which I'm interested.
Fraudulent speculation.
Call it what you choose. I hold your husband in the hollow of my hand, and if you're wise, you'll make him do as I tell.
You are impertinent. What does my husband to do with you? With a woman like you?
In this world, like meets like. 'Tis because your husband is himself fraudulent and dishonest that we pair so well together. Between you and him there are chasms. He and I are closer than friends. We are enemies linked together. The same sin binds
Oh, how
us.
dare you class my husband with yourself! How dare you threaten him or me! Leave my house, for you are unfit to enter it.
Your house. A house bought with dishonor. A house, everything in which has been paid for by fraud. Ask him what the origin of his fortune is. Get him to tell you how he sold to a stockbroker a cabinet secret. Learn to what you owe your position.
It is not true, Robert. It is not true.
Oh, look at him. Can he deny it? Does he dare to?
Go. Go at once. You've done your worst.
My worst! I'm not through with you. With either of you. I give you till tomorrow afternoon, no more. If by that time you do not do as I bid you, the whole world shall know the origin of Robert Chiltern.
Show Miss Cheeverley out.
You sold a cabinet secret for money! You began your life with a fraud! You built up your career on dishonor! Oh, tell me it's not true, Robert! Lie to me! Tell me it is not true!
Gertrude, what this woman said is quite true, but you don't know how...
Don't touch me! Don't come near me! I feel as if I have been soiled forever! Oh, what a mask you have been wearing! All these years! A horrible, painted mask! You sold yourself for money, Robert! Oh, a common thief were better. You put yourself up to sale in market. You were bought by the highest bidder. You lied to the whole world, but you will not lie to me.
Gertrude.
Don't speak, say nothing. Your voice wakes memories of me, memories of things that made me love you, memories of words that made me love you, memories that are now horrible to me. Oh, and how I worshipped you. You were to me something apart from common life, something noble, pure, honest, without stain. Oh, the world seemed to me finer because you were in it, and goodness, more real because you lived. Then I think I made a man like you my ideal, the ideal of my life.
There was your mistake. There was your error. The error all women commit. Why can't you women love us, faults and all? Why do you put us on monstrous pedestals? We all have feet of clay, women as well as men. But when we men love women, we love them knowing their weaknesses, their follies, their imperfections. Love them all the more for that reason. It is not the perfect, but the imperfect who have need of love. It is when we are wounded by our own hands or by the hands of others that love should come to cure us. Else what use is love at all? All sin save sin against itself, love should forgive. All lives save loveless lives, true love should pardon. A man's love is like that. It is wider, larger, more human than women's love. Women think they are making ideals of men. What they are making is false idols merely. You made your idol of me, and I had not the courage to come down. To show you my wounds, tell you my weaknesses. I was afraid I might lose your love as I have lost it now. So last night you ruined my life for me. Yes, ruined it. What this woman asked of me was nothing compared to what she offered me. She offered me peace, stability, security. The sin of my youth that I thought was buried rose up in front of me, hideous and horrible, with its hands at my throat. I could have killed it forever. Destroyed its record, burnt the one witness against me. You prevented me knowing, but you know it. And now what is there before me but public disgrace, ruin, terrible shame? The mockery of the world, a lonely, deserted life, a lonely, deserted death it may be one day. Let women make no more ideals of men. Let them not put them on altars and bow before them, or they may ruin other lives as completely as you. You, who I so wildly loved, have ruined mine.
Got my second buttonhole for me, Phipps?
Yes, my lord.
Rather distinguished thing, Phipps. I'm the only person of the smallest importance in all of London that wears a buttonhole.
Yes, my lord, I've observed that, my lord.
You see, fashion is what one wears oneself. What other people wear is unfashionable.
Yes, my lord.
Just as truths are the vulgarity, the truths are the falsehoods of others.
Yes, my lord.
And vulgarity the conduct of others.
Yes, my lord.
Yes. Other people are quite dreadful.
Yes, my lord.
The only possible society is oneself.
Yes, my lord.
To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong relationship.
Yes, my lord.
Don't think I quite like this buttonhole, Phipps. Makes me look a little too old, quite in the prime of life, eh, Phipps?
I don't observe any alteration in your lordship's appearance.
You don't?
No, my lord.
I'm not quite so sure. For the future, a more trivial buttonhole on Thursday evenings.
Yes, my lord, I shall speak to the florist. She's had a loss in her family recently, which perhaps accounts for the lack of triviality your lordship complains about in the buttonhole.
Yeah, extraordinary thing about the lower class of England, they are always losing their relations.
They're extremely fortunate in that respect.
Any letters today, Phipps?
3, my lord.
Phipps? When did this letter arrive?
It arrived by hand just before your lordship left for the club.
Thank you. I want my cab round in 20. That will do. Lady Chiltern's handwriting on Lady Chiltern's pink notepaper. It is curious. I thought Robert was to write. Wonder what she has got to say to me. I want you, I trust you, I am coming to you, Gertrude. I want you, I trust you, I'm coming to you. So she has found out everything. Poor woman. Poor woman. Oh, what an hour to call. 10 o'clock. Shall have to give up going to the Berkshires. It is always nice to be expected and not to arrive. I am not expected at the Bachelors. I shall certainly go there. No, I will make her stand by her husband. It is the only thing for her to do. It is the only thing for any woman to do. It is this growth of the moral sense in women that makes marriage such a one-sided institution. 10 o'clock. I must tell Phipps that I am in to see no one else.
Lord Caversham?
Some extraordinary mistake of nature. Parents always turning up at the wrong moment. Delighted to see you, Father.
Take my cloak off.
Is it worthwhile, Father?
Of course it is worthwhile, sir. Which is the most comfortable chair?
This one, Father. It is the one that I use myself when I have visitors.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
No draught, I hope, in this room?
No, Father.
Oh, glad to hear it. Can't stand draughts. No draughts at home.
Good many breezes, though, eh, Father?
Eh?
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 I don't understand what you mean, sir. Want to have a serious conversation with
Oh,
you.
my dear Father, at this hour?
Well, sir, it's nearly 10 o'clock. What is your objection to the hour? I think the hour is an admirable hour.
I'm sorry, Father, but it's not my day for talking seriously. I'm sorry, but it's not my day.
What do you mean, sir?
I mean, during the season between the hours of 4 and 7 on the first Tuesday of every month, I can talk seriously.
Well, make it Tuesday, sir. Make it Tuesday.
But it is after 7. And my doctor says that I cannot talk seriously in the evenings. Makes me talk in my sleep.
Talk in your sleep, sir? What does that matter? You're not married.
No, Father, I am not married.
And that is what I've come to talk to you about, sir. You have got to get married, and at once. Why, when I was your age, sir, I'd already been an inconsolable widower for 3 months, and was already paying my addresses to your admirable mother.
Yes.
Damn, so it's your duty to get married.
Yes.
You can't always be living for pleasure.
No.
Every man in position is married now.
Yes.
Bachelors are not fashionable anymore.
Yes.
They're a damaged lot.
Yes.
Too much is known about them.
Yes.
You've got to get a wife, sir. Why, look what your friend Robert Chiltern has got. By probity, hard work, and a sensible marriage with a good woman. Why don't you try to imitate him, sir? Why don't you take him for your model?
I think I shall, Father.
Oh, well, I should be happy then. At present, I make your mother's life miserable on your account, sir. You're heartless. Very heartless.
I hope not, Father.
And it is high time for you to get married. You're 34 years of age, sir.
Well, yes. I mean, I only admit to 32, 31 and a half when I'm wearing a really good buttonhole. This buttonhole is just not trivial enough.
I tell you, sir, you are 34 years old. Achoo! And there is a draft in this room! Besides your space, your conduct are the worst! Achoo! Why did you tell me there was no draft, sir? Achoo! I feel a draft, sir! Achoo! I feel a distinct Achoo! Achoo!
Yes, it is a dreadful draft, Father. Come, let us help you on with your cloak. I'll come and talk to you tomorrow. We can talk about anything you like. Let me help you on with your cloak.
Sir, I have come here with a definite purpose, and I plan to see it through at all costs, to my health or yours. Put my cloak down, sir!
Certainly, Father. Let us go into a different room. Is there a good fire in the smoking room, Phipps?
Yes, my lord.
Then let us go there. Your sneezes are quite heartrending.
I suppose I have the right to sneeze when I choose?
Of course, Father. I was just trying to express sympathy.
Oh, damn sympathy. There's entirely too much of that going on nowadays.
I agree with you, Father. If there was less sympathy in the world, there would be less trouble in the world.
That's a paradox, sir. I hate paradoxes.
So do I, Father. Everybody that one meets nowadays is a paradox. It's a great bore. It makes society so obvious.
Do you always really understand what you say, sir?
Yes, Father, when I listen attentively.
You listen attentively, Achoo! Conceited young puppy!
Phipps,
Yes, my lord.
there is a woman coming to see me today on a matter of great importance. When she arrives, will you put her into the drawing room?
Yes, my lord.
It is a matter of utmost urgency. Do you understand?
I understand, my lord.
Under no circumstances am I to see anyone else.
I understand, my lord.
Very well. Oh, perhaps it is the lady now. I will see to her myself.
Well, sir, am I to wait in attendance on you?
Just a moment, Father. Remember what I said, Phipps? In that room.
What name, madame?
Is Lord Goring not here? I was told he was at home.
His lordship is engaged at present with Lord Caversham, madame.
Oh, how very filial.
His lordship asked if you'd be kind enough to wait in the drawing room, madame. He'll come to you there.
Lord Goring expects me.
Yes, madame.
Are you quite sure?
His lordship said if a lady came calling, I should ask her to wait in the drawing room, madame. His orders on the matter were very precise.
How thoughtful of him. To expect the unexpected shows a thoroughly modern intellect. How dreary a bachelor's drawing room always looks. I shall have to alter this. No, I don't care for that lamp. It is far too glaring. Light some candles.
Yes, madame.
I hope they're very becoming shades.
We haven't had any complaints of them, as yet.
I wonder what woman he's waiting for tonight. It'd be delightful to catch him. Men always look so silly when they're being caught. And they're always being caught. Oh, what a very interesting room. Ah, very interesting picture. Oh, I wonder what his correspondence is like. Oh, what a dreary correspondence. Bills and cards, debts and dowagers. Who on earth writes them on pink paper? How silly to write on pink paper. It's like the beginning of a middle-class romance. The romance should never begin with sentiment. It should begin with science and end with a settlement. I know that handwriting. That is Gertrude Chilton's, I remembered perfectly. The 10 Commandments and every stroke of the pen and the moral law all over the page. Wonder what she's writing to him about. Something horrid about me, I suppose. I want you, I trust you, I'm coming to you, Gertrude. I want you, I trust you, I'm coming to you.
The candles in the drawing room are lit, madame, as you've ordered.
Thank you.
I hope the shades will be to your liking, the most becoming we have. The very same ones his lordship uses when he dresses himself for dinner.
Then I'm sure they will be perfectly right.
Thank you, madame.
Oh, my dear father, if I'm to get married, certainly you will allow me to choose the time, place, and person, particularly the person.
That is a matter for me, sir. You would make a very poor choice. It is I who should be consulted, not you. There's property at stake. This isn't a matter of affection. Affection comes later on in married life.
Yes, affection comes later in married life when people thoroughly dislike each other, doesn't it, father?
Certainly, sir. I mean, certainly not, sir. You've been talking very foolishly tonight. What I'm trying to say is that marriage is a matter of common sense.
Oh, but women of common sense are so curiously plain, father. Of course, I only speak from hearsay.
No woman, plain or pretty, has any common sense. It's a privilege of our sex.
Yes, and we men are so self-sacrificing that we never use it, do we, father?
Oh, I use it, sir. I use nothing else.
So my mother tells me.
You're heartless, sir! Very heartless!
I hope not, father!
Arthur, what a piece of good luck meeting you on the doorstep. Your servant has told me you're not at home. How extraordinary.
The truth is, Robert, that I'm very busy at the moment, tonight. I gave strict instructions that I was at home to receive no one else. My father received a comparatively cold reception. He complained of a draft the whole time.
Arthur, you must be at home to me, Arthur. Arthur, you are my best friend. My wife has discovered everything.
I guessed as much.
Really? How?
Merely something by the expression of your face as you came in. Who told her?
Mrs. Cheveley herself. And now the woman I love knows that I began my career with an act of low dishonesty, that I built up my life on sands of shame, that I sold like a common huckster the secret that was entrusted to me as a man of honor. I thank God Lord Radley died without knowing I'd betrayed him. I would to God I had died before I'd been so terribly tempted or sunk so low.
Have you heard nothing yet from Vienna in response to your wire?
I received a telegram from the first secretary at 8 o'clock tonight.
Well?
Nothing is absolutely known against her. On the contrary, she occupies a rather high position in society. It's sort of an open secret that Baron Arnheim left her the greater portion of his immense fortune.
And she doesn't turn out to be a spy, does she?
Spies are of no use nowadays. Their occupation is over. The newspapers do their work instead.
And thunderingly well, they do it too.
May I ring for something, Arthur? Some hock and seltzer? I am parched with thirst.
Certainly, allow me.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, and you are my best friend. But what a friend you are! One I can trust! I can trust you absolutely, can't I?
Oh, my dear Robert. Of course. Phipps, fetch us some hawk and seltzer. And Phipps. Robert, I wish to give some instructions to my servants. You will excuse me for a moment.
Certainly.
Phipps, when the lady arrives, tell her that I am no longer available at home. Tell her that I've been called out of town. Do you understand?
I put her in the drawing room, my lord. You told me to put her into the drawing room.
Well, you did perfectly right. Oh, what a mess I am in. No, now I shall get through it. I will give her a lecture through the door. It's a terribly awkward thing to manage, though.
Arthur, tell me what I should do, Arthur. Arthur, I feel that I am a ship without a rudder in a night without stars.
Robert, you love your wife, don't you?
I love her more than anything in the world. I used to think ambition was the great thing. It is not love is the great thing. There is only love, and I love her. But I am defamed in her eyes. I am ignoble in her eyes now that she has found me out. Arthur, she has found me out.
Why, is there no act of folly, some indiscretion she has done that she cannot forgive you?
My wife?
Yes.
Never.
Oh.
She does not know what weakness or temptation is. I am of clay like other men, but she stands apart as good women do, pitiless in her perfection, cold and stern and without mercy, but I love her. We are without children, and I have no one else to love. No one else to love me. Perhaps if God had granted us children, she might have been kinder to me, but God has granted us a lonely house, and she has cut my heart in two. Let us not talk of it. I was brutal to her this evening. But I suppose when sinners talk to saints, they are brutal always. I said things that were hideously true from my side, from my standpoint, from the standpoint of men. Let us not talk of it.
Robert, your wife will forgive you. Perhaps at this very moment she is forgiving you. She loves you, Robert. Why should she not forgive?
God grant it. God grant it. But there is something more I must tell you, Arthur.
Hawk and seltzer, sir.
Oh, thanks.
Robert, is your cab here?
No, I walked from the club.
Phipps, so Robert will take my cab. You don't mind me sending you away, do you?
Oh, you must let me stay 5 minutes. I've decided what I'm going to do at the house. The debate on the Argentine Canal is to begin at 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. What was that?
Nothing.
I heard a chair fall in the next room. Someone has been listening.
No, there is no one.
The light is on and the door is ajar. Someone has been listening to every secret of my life. Arthur, what does this mean?
My dear
Arthur?
Robert, you are excited, unnerved. Sit down, Robert, please.
Do you give me a word there is no one there?
Yes.
Your word of honor?
Yes.
I must see for myself.
No!
Arthur, if there's no one there, why should I not look? You must let me satisfy myself. Let me know that no eavesdropper has heard my life secret.
Robert, I have told you there is no one in that room. That is enough.
It is not enough. If there's no one there, what reason have you?
For God's sake, don't! There is someone in there, someone you must not see.
I thought so.
I forbid you to enter this room.
Out of my way. My life's at stake. I will know to whom I've told my secret and my shame.
For heaven's sake, his own wife.
What is the presence of that woman doing here?
Robert, on my honor, that woman is stainless of all guilt and offense towards you.
She is a vile, an infamous thing.
Robert, don't say that. She came here for you. She loves you and no one else.
You are mad. What am I to do with her intrigues with you? Let her be your mistress still. You are well suited to each other. She corrupt and shameful. You false as a friend. Treacherous as an enemy even.
No, Robert, it is not true. For heaven's sakes, it is not. In her presence and in yours, I will explain it all.
Out of my way. You have lied enough upon your word of honor.
Good evening, Lord Goring.
Mrs. Cheveley. Good heavens. May I ask what you were doing in my drawing room?
Merely listening. I have a perfect passion for listening through keyholes. One always hears the most wonderful things through them.
Doesn't that sound quite like the tempting Providence?
No, surely Providence can resist temptation by this time.
I'm actually glad you have called. I wish to give you some good advice.
No, pray don't. One should never give a woman anything she can't wear in the evening.
I see you're quite as willful as you used to be.
Far more. I have greatly improved. I've had much more experience.
Oh, too much experience is a dangerous thing. Pray, have a cigarette. Half the pretty women in London are smoking cigarettes nowadays. Personally, I prefer the other half.
Thanks, I never smoke. My dressmaker wouldn't like it. And a woman's first duty in life is to a dressmaker, isn't it? What the second duty is, no one has yet discovered.
You came here tonight to sell me Robert Chilton's letter, haven't you?
To offer to you on conditions. How did you guess that?
Because you haven't brought the subject up. Do you have it with you?
Oh, no. A well-made dress has no pockets.
What is your price for it?
Oh, how absurdly English you are. Why, the English think that a checkbook can solve every problem in life. Why, my dear Arthur, I have very much more money than you have, and quite as much as Robert Chilton has got a hold of. Money is not what I want.
What do you want then, Mrs. Cheever?
Why don't you call me Laura?
Because I don't like the name.
You used to adore it.
Yes, that is why.
You loved me once, Arthur.
Yes?
And you asked me to be your wife.
That is the natural result of me loving you.
And you threw me over because you saw, or said you saw, poor old Lord Mortlake trying to have a violent flirtation with me at the conservatory at Tenby.
I am under the impression that my lawyer settled that matter with you on certain terms dictated by yourself.
At the time I was poor and you were rich.
Yes, that is why you pretended to love me.
Poor old Lord Mortlake. Only had two topics of conversation, his gout and his wife. I never could make out which of the two he was talking about. He used the most horrid language about them both.
Yes.
Well, Arthur, you were silly. Why, Lord Mortlake was never anything more to me than amusement. One of those utterly tedious amusements one only finds at an English country house on an English country Sunday. I don't hold anyone at all morally responsible for what one does at an English country house.
Yes, I know lots of people that think that.
I loved you, Arthur.
My dear Mrs. Cheveley, you are far too clever to know anything about love.
I did love you. And you loved me. You know you loved me. Love is a very wonderful thing. I suppose that when a man has once loved a woman, he'll do anything for her, except continue to love her.
Yes, except that.
I'm tired of living abroad. I want to come back to London. I want to have a charming house here. If one could only teach the English how to talk and the Irish how to listen, society would be quite civilized. Besides, I've reached the romantic stage.
Oh.
When I saw you at the Chiltons last night, I knew you were the only person I'd ever loved, if I've ever loved anybody, Arthur. And so, on the morning of the day you marry me, I'll give you Robert Chilton's letter. I'll give it to you now, if you promise to marry me.
Now?
Tomorrow.
Oh, heavens. Are you serious?
Quite serious.
I should make you a very bad husband.
I don't mind bad husbands. I've had two. They amused me immensely.
You mean to say that you amused yourself immensely, don't you?
What do you know about my married life?
Nothing, but I can read it like a book.
What book?
The book of numbers.
Do you think it is very charming of you to be so rude to women in your own house?
In the case of very fascinating women, sex is not a defense, it is a challenge.
I suppose that is meant for a compliment. My dear Arthur, women are never disarmed by compliments. Men always are. That is the difference between the sexes.
Women are never disarmed by anything, as far as I can see.
Then you are going to allow your greatest friend to be ruined rather than marry somebody who really has considerable attractions left? I thought you would have risen to some great height of self-sacrifice, Arthur. I think you should. You could spend the rest of your days contemplating your own perfections.
I do that as it is. And self-sacrifice is the thing that should be put down by law. It is so demoralizing for the people for whom one sacrifices oneself. They always go to the bad.
As if anything could demoralize Robert Chilton. You seem to forget I know his real character.
What you know of Robert Chilton is not his real character. It was an act of folly done in his youth. Dishonorable, I admit. Shameful, I admit. Unworthy of him, I admit. And therefore, not his true character.
How you men stand up for each other.
How you women war against each other.
I only war against one woman, against Gertrude Chilton. I hate her. I hate her now more than ever.
Oh, because you have brought a real tragedy into her life, I
No,
suppose.
the only real tragedy in a woman's life is the fact that her past is her lover, and her future invariably her husband.
Lady Chilton knows nothing of the life to which you allude to.
The woman whose size and gloves is 7 3/4 doesn't know much about anything. Do you know Gertrude has always worn 7 3/4? That was right. There's never any moral sympathy between us. Well, Arthur, I suppose this romantic interview may be regarded as at an end. You admit it was romantic, don't you? For the privilege of being your wife, I was ready to surrender a great prize. The climax of my diplomatic career, you decline. Very well. If Sir Robert doesn't uphold my Argentine scheme, I expose him. Voila, too.
Oh, no. You mustn't do that. That would be horrible. Vile. Infamous.
No, don't use big words. They mean so little. 'Tis a commercial transaction. That is all. No use mixing sentimentality in it. I offered to sell Robert Chilton a certain thing. If he won't pay me my price, I'll have to pay the world a greater price. There's no more to be said. I must go. Goodbye. Won't you shake hands?
With you? No. Your transaction with Robert Chilton may pass as a loathsome commercial transaction or a loathsome commercial age, but you have forgotten that you came here tonight to talk of love. You, whose lips desecrate the very word. You, to whom the thing is a book so closely sealed, went this evening to the home of one of the most noble and gentle women of the whole world to degrade her husband in her eyes, to put kill her love for him, to put poison in her heart, bitterness in her life, to break her idol, and may it be spoil her soul. For that there is no forgiveness. That was horrible. For that I cannot forgive you.
Arthur, you are unjust to me. Believe me, you are quite unjust to me. I didn't go to taunt Gertrude at all. I had no idea of doing anything of the kind when I entered. I simply called with Lady Markby to ask if an ornament, a jewel of mine, had been found at the Chiltons. If you don't believe me, you can ask Lady Markby. She will tell you it is true. The scene that occurred happened after Lady Markby had left and was really forced on me by Gertrude's rudeness and sneers. I called her, a little out of malice, if you like. But really to ask if a diamond brooch of mine had been found, that was the origin of the whole thing.
A diamond snake brooch with a ruby?
Yes. How do you know?
Because it is found. Point in fact, I found it and I stupidly forgot to tell the butler about it as I was leaving. It is in this drawer. Is this the ornament?
Yes. I'm so glad to get it back. It was a present.
Won't you put it on?
Certainly, if you pin it in.
Of course.
Why do you put it on as a bracelet? I never knew it could be worn as a bracelet.
Really?
No, but it looks very well on me, doesn't it?
Better than when I saw it last.
Oh, when did you see it last?
10 years ago on Lady Berkshire, from whom you stole it.
What do you mean?
I mean that you stole it from my cousin, Mary Berkshire, to whom I gave it as a wedding present years ago. Suspicion fell on a wretched house servant who was sent away in disgrace. I recognized it last night and was determined not to say anything until I had found the thief. I have found the thief now and heard her very confession.
No, it is not true.
Of course it is true. My thief is written across your face at this very moment.
I'll deny the whole thing from beginning to end. I will say never said this wretched thing before me life. It is every repossession. Oh, bugger!
The drawback of stealing a thing, Mrs. Cheveley, is that one never knows how wonderful the thing that one steals really is. You can't get it off unless you know where the spring is. I can see that you don't know where it is. It's a terribly difficult thing to locate, isn't it?
So you coward!
Oh, don't use big words, love. They mean so well.
What are you going to do?
I am going to ring for my servant. He is an admirable servant and always comes in the moment one calls for him. I will tell him to fetch the police.
The police, what for?
Tomorrow the Berkshires will prosecute you. That is what the police are
So,
for.
I'll do anything in the world you want, anything in the world.
Give me Robert Chilton's letter.
So, give me time to think.
Give me Robert Chilton's letter.
I've not got it with
You
me.
are lying to me. Give it to me at once! Is this it?
Yes.
For such a well-dressed woman, Mrs. Cheveley, you have moments of admirable common sense. I congratulate you.
Please get me some water.
Certainly.
Thank you. Will you help me on with my cloak?
With pleasure.
I'm never going to try to harm Robert Chilton again.
Luckily for you, you won't have the chance.
Well, even if I did, I wouldn't. On the contrary, I'm going to render him a great service.
I'm delighted to hear it. It is a reformation.
Yes. I can't bear so upright a gentleman, so honourable an English gentleman, being so shamefully deceived and so...
Well?
I find that somehow Gertrude Chilton's dying speech and confession has strayed into my pocket.
What do you mean?
I mean that I'm going to send Robert Chilton the love letter his wife wrote to you tonight.
Love letter?
I want you. I trust you. I'm coming to you, Gertrude.
You wretched woman, why must you always be thieving? Give me the letter. Give it back to me at once. I will take it from you by force. You will not...
Lord Goring merely rang that you should show me out. Good night, Lord Goring.
It is a great nuisance. I can find no one in this house to talk to. I'm full of interesting information. Why, I feel like the latest edition of something or other.
Sir Robert is still at the Foreign Office, my lord.
Lady Chilton down yet?
Her ladyship has not yet left the room. Miss Chilton has just come in from riding.
Oh, that is something.
Lord Caversham has been waiting for some time in the library for Sir Robert. I told him your lordship was here.
Thank you. Will you kindly tell him I've gone?
I shall do so, my lord.
Yeah. Bring really, I don't want to meet my father 3 days running. That's a great deal too much excitement for any son. I hope to goodness he doesn't come up. Fathers should be neither seen nor heard. That is the only proper basis for any family life. Mothers are different. Mothers are darling.
Well, sir, what are you doing here? Wasting your time as usual, I suppose?
My dear father, when one pays a visit, it is for the purpose of wasting other people's time, not one's own.
Have you thought over what I spoke to you about last night?
Thought about nothing else.
Engaged to be married yet?
No, but I hope to be before lunchtime.
You can have till dinner time if we have any convenience to you.
Thanks awfully, but I'd rather be engaged before lunch.
You can never tell when you're serious or not.
Me neither, father.
I suppose you read the Times this morning?
Heavens no. I only read the Morning Post. All that one needs to know is where the duchesses are. Anything else is quite demoralizing.
You mean to tell me you've not read the Times' leading article on Sir Robert Chiltern's career?
Heavens no! Why, what does it say?
What should it say, sir? Everything complimentary, of course. His speech last night on this Argentine canal scheme was one of the finest pieces of oratory delivered in the House since Canning.
No, Canning. Never heard of it. Never wanted to. Tell me, did Chiltern uphold the scheme?
Oh, uphold it, sir? No, how little you know him. No, he denounced it roundly. In the whole system of modern political finance, the speech is a turning point in his career, as the Time points out. You should really read the article.
Oh.
Sir Robert Chiltern, most rising of a young statesman, brilliant orator, unblemished career, well-known integrity of character, represents what's best in English public life. Noble contrast to the lax morality so common among foreign politicians. They will never say that of you, sir.
No, father, I hope not. But I am delighted to hear what you tell me about Robert. Thoroughly delighted. Shows that he's got pluck.
He's got more than pluck, sir. He's got genius.
No, I prefer pluck, father. It's not so common nowadays as genius is.
I wish you would go into Parliament.
Oh, my dear father, only people who look dull ever go into the House of Commons, and only people who are actually dull ever succeed there.
Why don't you try and do something useful with your life?
I'm far too young.
Ugh, I hate this affectation of youth. It is far too prevalent nowadays.
Youth is not an affectation, father. Youth is an art.
Why don't you try and propose to that pretty Miss Chiltern?
Because I am of a nervous disposition, especially in the mornings.
I don't suppose there's the slightest chance for accepting you.
I don't know how the betting stands today.
Well, if she were to accept you, she'd be the prettiest fool in England.
That's what I should like to marry, father. A thoroughly sensible wife would reduce me to a state of common idiocy in less than 6 months.
Oh, you don't deserve her, sir!
Ah, my dear father, if we men married the women we deserve, we should make a very bad time of it.
Oh, how do you do, Lord Caversham? I hope Lady Caversham is quite well.
Lady Caversham is as usual as usual.
Good morning,
and
Miss
Lady
Mabel.
Caversham's bonnets, are they at all better?
Oh, they've had a serious relapse, I'm sorry to say.
Good morning,
Well, I
Miss
hope an
Mabel.
operation will not be necessary.
Oh, well, if it is, we should have to give Lady Caversham a narcotic, otherwise she'd never consent to have a feather touched.
Good morning, Miss Mabel.
Oh, are you here? Of course you understand, after your breaking your appointment this morning, I'm never going to speak to you again.
Oh, no, please don't. Miss Mabel, you are the only person in all of London that I like to have listen
Lord
to
Goring,
me.
I never believe a single word either you or I say to each other.
You're quite right there, my dear. Well, as far as he's concerned, I mean...
Do you think you could possibly make your son behave a little better, occasionally, just as a change?
I'm afraid I have no influence at all over my son. I wish I had. If I had, I know what I would make him do.
Well, I'm afraid he has one of those terribly weak natures that are not susceptible to influence.
He's heartless. Very heartless.
Oh, dear.
I feel I am a little in the way here.
It is very good for you to be in the way and to know what people say of you behind your back.
I don't like knowing what people say behind my back. Makes me far too conceited.
After that, I really must bid you good morning, my dear.
I hope you're not going to leave me all alone with Lord Goring, especially at such an early hour in the day.
I'm afraid I can't take him to Downing Street with me. It's not the Prime Minister's day for seeing the unemployed.
People who don't keep their appointments in the park are horrid.
Detestable.
Oh, I'm so glad you admit it. But I wish you wouldn't look so pleased about it.
I can't help it. I am always pleased when I am with you.
Oh, then I suppose it is my duty to remain with you.
Yes, of course it is.
Well, my duty is a thing I never do. On principle, it always depresses me, so I'm afraid I must leave you.
Please don't, Miss Mabel. I have a very particular question that I wish to ask of you.
Is it a proposal?
Well, yes, I am bound to say it is.
I'm so glad. That makes a second today.
The second today? What impertinent ass has been conceited enough to propose to you before I...
Tommy Trafford, of course.
Oh!
It is one of Tommy's days for proposing. Well, Tommy always proposes on Tuesdays and Thursdays throughout the season.
I hope you didn't accept him.
I make it a rule to never accept Tommy. That is why he goes on proposing. Well, of course, as you didn't turn up this morning, I very nearly said yes. It would have been an excellent lesson for both him and for you if I had. It would have taught you both better manners.
Bother Tommy Trafford. Tommy is a conceited little arse. I love you.
I know. Well, I think you might have mentioned it before. I'm sure I've given you heaps of opportunities.
Mabel, please be serious. Do be serious.
Well, that's the sort of thing a man always says to a girl before he's been married to her. He never says it afterwards.
Mabel, I have just told you I love you. Cannot you love me a little in return?
You silly Arthur. Well, if you knew anything about anything, which you don't, well, you would know that I adore you. Everyone in London knows it except you. It's a public scandal the way I adore you. I've been going around the past 6 months telling the whole of society that I adore you. I wonder you consent to have anything to say to me at all. I have no character left at all. Or at least I'm so happy I'm quite sure I have no character left at all. Oh.
Do you know how awfully afraid I was of being refused?
But you've never been refused yet by anybody, Arthur. I can't imagine anyone refusing you.
Well, I'm not nearly good enough for you, Mabel.
I'm so glad, darling. I was afraid you were.
And I am a little over 30.
Dear. Well, you look weeks younger.
And I must admit that I am fearfully extravagant.
Oh, but then so am I, Arthur, so we're sure to agree. And now I must go and see Gertrude.
Must you?
Yes.
Well, then tell her that I've been waiting here all morning to talk to either her or Robert.
Do you mean to tell me you didn't come expressly here to propose to me?
No. That was a stroke of genius.
Oh, you're first.
My last.
I'm so glad to hear it. Now, don't stir. I'll only be 5 minutes, and don't fall into any temptations while I'm away.
Oh, my dear Mabel, while you are away, there are none. It makes me horribly dependent on you.
Good morning, dear. Oh, how pretty you're looking.
How pale you are looking, Gertrude. Oh, it is most becoming.
Good morning, Lord Goring.
Oh, good morning, Lady Chiltern.
I shall be in the conservatory under the second palm tree on the left.
Second palm tree on the left?
Yes. The usual palm tree.
Lady Chiltern, I have a certain amount of very good news I should like to give you. Mrs. Cheveley gave up Robert's letter last night and I burned it. Robert is safe.
Safe? Oh, I am so glad to hear it. Oh, what a good friend you are to him. To us.
There can only be one person now who can be said to be in any danger.
Who's that?
Yourself.
I? In danger, what do you mean?
Oh, danger is too great of a word. Perhaps it is a word I should not have used. But indeed, I should like to give you some information which may distress you. It distresses me terribly. Yesterday, you wrote me a very handsome, womanly letter in which you said that you wanted me and you trusted me. You wrote to me as one of your oldest friends, as one of Robert's oldest friends. Mrs. Cheveley has stolen that letter from my rooms.
Well, what use is it to her? Why should she not have
Lady
it?
Chilton, I'm going to be frank. Mrs. Cheveley puts a certain construction on that letter and intends to send it to your husband.
But what construction could you put on it? Oh, not that. Not that I in trouble, trusting you propose to come to you, that you may assist me and advise me. Oh, are there really women as horrible as that?
Yeah.
Oh, and she proposes to send it to my husband. Oh, tell me that. What happened? Tell me all that happened.
Mrs. Cheveley concealed herself in a room adjoining my library without my knowledge. I thought the person coming to see me was yourself. Robert came in unexpectedly. A chair or something fell. He forced his way in to discover her. I still thought it was you. We had a terrible scene. He left me in anger. At the end of everything, she got a hold of your letter. She stole it. When or how, I don't know.
At what hour did this happen?
At 10:30. Now, I propose that we tell Robert the whole thing.
You want me to tell Robert the woman you expected last night was not Mrs. Cheveley but myself?
Yes.
That it was I, whom you thought was concealed in a room in your house at 10:30 at night. You want me to tell him that?
I think it is best that we tell Robert the exact truth.
I couldn't.
Well, may I?
No!
Well, you are wrong, Lady Chilton.
No, the letter must be intercepted, that is all. Oh, but how can I do it? Letters arrive for him at every moment of the day. His secretaries open them and hand them to him. Oh, I dare not ask the servants to bring me his letters. That would be impossible. Oh, why don't you tell me what to do?
Pray be calm, Lady Chilton, and answer the question I'm about to put to you. You say that his secretaries open his letters?
Yes.
Who's with him today, Mr. Trafford?
No, Mr. Montfort, I think.
And you can trust him, can't you?
How do I know?
Well, he would do what you ask, wouldn't he?
I think so.
Your letter was written on pink paper. He could identify the letter without reading its contents by the colour.
I suppose so.
Is he at home now?
Yes.
Very well. I will go to him at once and tell him that there is a letter to be forwarded to Robert on pink notepaper and that it at all costs must not reach him, yes? Oh, it is Robert now with the letter in hand. It has reached him already.
Oh, you have saved his life, but what have you done to mine?
I want you. I trust you. I am coming to you. Gertrude. Oh, my love, is this true? Do you indeed want me and trust me? If so, it was for me to come to you, not for you to write of coming to me. This letter of yours, Gertrude, it makes me feel that nothing that the world can do can hurt me now. You want me, Gertrude?
Yes, 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 yes!
You trust me, Gertrude?
Yes! Yes!
Well, why didn't you say that you loved me?
Because I loved you!
You don't know how I feel. When Mumford passed me the letter across the table, he opened it by mistake, I suppose, without looking at the handwriting in the envelope. And I read it. I didn't care what punishment or disgrace was in store for me. All I could think is you loved me still.
Oh, but no shame nor any public disgrace is in store for you. Mrs. Cheveley has handed over to Lord Goring the document in her possession, and he has destroyed it.
Are you sure of this, Gertrude?
Yes, he has just told me.
Then I'm safe. What a wonderful thing to be safe. For 2 days I lived in terror, but I'm safe now. How did Arthur destroy my letter?
He burned it.
I wish I could have seen that sin of my youth burnt to ashes. How many men are there in modern life that would like to see their pasts burnt to white ashes in front of them? Oh, is Arthur still here?
Yes, he's in the conservatory.
I'm so glad I made that speech last night in the house. I made it thinking that public disgrace would be the result. It has not been so.
Public honor has been the result.
Yes, I think so. I fear so almost. For although I'm safe from detection, for although every proof against me has been destroyed, I suppose I should retire from public life.
Oh, yes, you should do that. It is your duty to do that.
It is much to surrender.
No, it is much to gain.
And you would be happy living alone with me, abroad perhaps, in the country, away from London, away from public life. You would have no regrets.
Oh, none, Robert.
What about your ambition for me? You used to have such ambition for me.
Oh, my ambition. I have none now, but that we two may love each other. It was your ambition that led you astray. Let us not talk of ambition.
Oh, Arthur, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me. I don't know how to repay you.
Well, I'll tell you at once. At present, under the usual palm tree. The second palm tree. The conservatory.
Lord Caversham,
That admirable father of mine is making a very bad habit of turning up at all the wrong moments. It's very heartless of him, sir, very heartless.
Good morning, Lady Chiltern, and warmest congratulations to you, Chiltern, on your brilliant speech last night. I've just been down to the Prime Minister, and you are to have the vacant seat on the cabinet.
Seat on the cabinet?
Robert!
Certainly, and here is the Prime Minister's letter.
Seat on the cabinet?
Certainly, sir. You've got exactly what we want in political life nowadays. High character, high moral tone, high principles. Everything you're not, sir, and will never be.
No, Father, I don't much like principles. I prefer prejudices.
I cannot accept this offer, Lord Caversham. I made up my mind to decline.
Decline it, sir?
I intend to retire immediately from public life.
Decline a seat on the cabinet and retire from public life. I've never heard so much damn nonsense in the whole course of my existence. Excuse me, Lady Chiltern. Beg your pardon, Chiltern. Stop grinning like that, sir!
No, Father!
Lady Chiltern, you're a sensible woman. The most sensible woman and none, the most sensible woman that I know. Would you kindly prevent your husband from talking such Would you kindly do that, Lady Chiltern?
But I think my husband is quite right in his determination. I approve of it.
Oh, you approve of it? Good heavens!
I admire him for it. I admire him immensely. Never before have I admired him so much. He is a finer man than even I thought him to be. You will go and write to the Prime Minister now, won't you, Robert? Don't hesitate about it.
I better write this moment. Such offers are not repeated. Excuse me for a moment, Lord Caversham.
I might come with you, Robert, may I not?
Yes, Gertrude.
What is the matter with his family? There's something wrong here. Idiocy? Hereditary, I suppose. And husband as well as wife. Very sad indeed. And when they're not an old family. Can't understand it.
It is not idiocy, Father, I assure you.
Oh, what is it then, sir?
Oh, it is something that we simply call nowadays a high moral tone, that is all.
I hate these newfangled terms. It is the same thing we used to call idiocy 50 years ago. I shan't stay in this house any longer.
Go in there a moment, Father. Second palm tree on the left. The usual palm tree.
What, sir?
Father?
What?
I've forgotten. The conservatory, Father, the conservatory. There is somebody there that I wish you to talk
About what, sir?
About me.
Oh. Not a subject on which much eloquence is possible.
No, but the lady is like me, Father. She doesn't much care for eloquence, and others she thinks it a little too loud. Lady Chiltern, why are you playing Mrs. Cheveley's cards?
I don't understand.
Mrs. Cheveley tried to wreck your husband, either to drive him from public life or make him adopt a dishonorable position. From the former, you have saved him. The latter, you are now thrusting upon him. Why would you do him the wrong that Mrs. Cheveley tried to do and failed?
Lord Corey!
Lady Chiltern. Yesterday, you wrote me a letter in which you said that you wanted me and you trusted me. Now is when you really want my help. Now is when you've got to trust me. Trust my counsel and my judgment. You love Robert, don't you? Do you want to kill his love for you? What would his existence be like if you were to rob him of the fruits of his ambitions? If you were to take from him the splendor of a great political career, close the doors of public life against him, condemn him to a sterile failure, he who was made for triumph and success. Women are not meant to judge us, but to pardon us, forgive us when we need forgiveness. It is pardon, not punishment, that is their mission. Why should you scourge him with rods for a sin he has done in his youth? Before he knew you, before he knew himself, even. Don't make a terrible mistake, Lady Chiltern.
Oh, but it is my husband himself who wishes to retire from public life. He feels it is his duty. It was he who first said so.
Rather than lose your love, your husband would do anything, wreck his whole career as he is on the brink of doing so now. He is making for you a terrible sacrifice, Lady Chiltern. Take my advice. Do not accept a sacrifice so great. If you do, you will live to repent it bitterly. We men and women are not meant to accept such sacrifices from each other. We are not worthy of them. Besides, has Robert not been punished enough?
We have both been punished. I set him up too high.
Now, do not for that reason set him down too low. If Robert has fallen from his altar, do not thrust him into the mire. Failure to Robert would be the very mire of shame. Power. Power is his passion. He would lose everything, even his power to feel love. Your husband's life is at this moment in your hands. Your husband's love is in your hands, Lady Chiltern. Don't mar them both for him.
I've the draft of the letter. May I read it to you, Gertrude?
Let me see it.
What are you doing?
I will not spoil your life for you, nor see you spoil it as a sacrifice to me, a useless sacrifice. I have just learnt this and much more from Lord Goring.
Gertrude,
You will forget. Men forget easily. And I forgive. That is how women help the world. I see that now.
Oh, my wife. My wife. Arthur, it seems I am always to be in your debt.
Your debt is to Lady Chiltern, not to me.
I owe you much. Now, what was it you were going to tell me before Lord Cavsham came in?
Robert, you are your sister's guardian. I simply wanted your consent in my marrying her.
Oh,
that is
I am
all.
so glad! I am so glad!
My sister to be your wife?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Arthur, but the thing is quite out of the question. I must think of Mabel's future happiness. I do not believe her happiness will be safe in your hands. I will not have her be sacrificed.
Sacrificed?
Yes, utterly sacrificed. Loveless marriages are terrible, but there's one thing worse than a loveless marriage. A marriage where there's love, but on one side only. Faith, but on one side only. Devotion, but on one side only. And between two hearts, one is sure to be broken.
No, I love Mabel. There is no room for any other woman in my life.
But if they love each other, Robert, why should they not be married?
Arthur cannot give Mabel the love she deserves.
What reason have you for saying that?
Do you really require me to tell you?
Certainly I do!
Very well. When I called upon you last night, I found Mrs. Cheveley concealed in one of your rooms. It was between 10 and 11 o'clock at night. I do not wish to say anything more. Your relations with Miss Cheveley, as I said last night, have nothing whatsoever to do with me. You were engaged to be married to her once. The fascination she exerted over you then seems to have returned. You spoke of her last night as a woman whom you respected and honored. That may be true, but I will not give Mabel into your hands. It would be wrong, unjust, infamously unjust to her.
Then I have nothing more to say.
Robert, it was not Mrs. Cheveley whom Lord Goring expected last night.
Chiltern?
No.
Not Miss Cheveley. Who then?
It was her own wife. Yesterday afternoon, Lord Goring told me if ever I was in trouble that I could come to him for help and advice. After the terrible scene in this room, I wrote to him, telling him that I had need of him, that I trusted him, that I was coming to him for help. Yes, that letter. I didn't go to Lord Goring's after all. I felt that it was from ourselves alone help can come. Pride made me think that. Mrs. Cheveley went. She stole my letter and sent it to you anonymously that you should think. Oh, Robert, I cannot tell you what she wished you would think.
What? Had I fallen so low in your eyes that even for a moment you could have thought I could have doubted your goodness? Gertrude, you are to me the white image of all good things. And sin can never touch you. Arthur, you may go to Mabel.
Thank you!
Wait a moment! There is no name on this letter. The brilliant Mrs. Cheveley seems to have not noticed that there should be a name.
Well, let me write yours. It is you I need and trust, and nobody else.
Oh, I think I should have my letter back, don't you, Lady Chiltern?
No! You shall have Mabel.
No, I hope she hasn't forgotten. It's been nearly 20 minutes since I saw her
Lord
last.
Goring, I find your father's conversation much more improving than yours. I'm only going to speak to Lord Caversham in the future, and always under the usual palm tree.
Darling.
What does this mean, sir? You don't mean to say that this pretty, charming young lady has been so foolish as to accept you?
Of course, Father. and Robert has been wise enough as to accept a seat on the cabinet.
Oh, I'm very glad to hear it. I congratulate you, sir. If the country doesn't go to the dogs or the radicals, we'll make you Prime Minister someday.
Luncheon is on the table, milady.
Oh, you'll stop to luncheon, won't you, Lord Caversham?
Oh, with pleasure. And I'll drive you down to Downing Street afterwards. You've a bright future ahead of you, a very bright future.
Indeed.
I wish I could say the same for you. Unfortunately, your career will have to be entirely domestic.
Yes, Father, I prefer it domestic.
And if you don't make this young lady an ideal husband, I'll cut you off without a shilling.
Ideal husband? I don't think I should like that. It sounds like something in the next world.
What would you like him to be then, dear?
He can be what he chooses. All I want to be is, well, to be a real wife to him.
Upon my word, there's a great good deal of common sense in that, Lady Chiltern.
Aren't you coming in, Robert?
Gertrude, is it love you feel for me? Or pity merely?
It is love, and only love. For us both, a new life is beginning.